Good morning, everybody. You are tuned to Computers 2K Now on the Nissan Communications Network. I'm Amnon, your host for the next few hours, along with Mike.
Oh, good Sunday morning.
Oh. And Nick is here.
Oh, yes, I'm here as well.
And Steve is here.
Buy pork bellies.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Our number is 919-518-9773. Computers 2K Voice on Skype. And this morning's show is brought to you by that VidBlaster guy, Tom Sinclair, and by Adamus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals.
Like me.
Yep. And today is August 10th.
Already?
2014. I mean, time flies when you're having fun. It's true.
Merry Christmas.
The cold weather's coming.
Yep.
Bring it on.
Yes, sir. She's a-coming. So what's happening, guys?
Not a whole lot. How about you?
F-Thank's fine now. F-Thank.
Emma, why don't you talk about your WordPress experience yesterday? I think people have some interest in that.
Yes.
Amnon's now a WordPress expert.
Well,
That doesn't sound like it was an intentional thing.
Nick saved the day.
No, I didn't. Just stop. Jeez.
That's new.
My take credit when credit is due. It's fine. You did it.
Yeah, Nick's an expert.
My dentist wanted to have a WordPress site. They have a website, but he said his new partner, she's a very nice girl, and she's up to everything as far as technology. And she said, can we have a WordPress so we can do everything? I said, sure. So I installed WordPress on the side. Ron did. And I told him to go at it and do stuff. And I checked it the first few days, and sure enough, she worked, and she did this, she did that. The last few mornings, when I get the reports about what's happening at night, there were alerts that the load on the server was really high. I mean, higher than normal. Normally, the load right now is about 1 to 2%. It was 12, and that's considerably more than what it should use.
Somebody got hacked.
And that's a server, so it shouldn't be.
Yeah, that's a server.
It shouldn't be running that high
Right.
unless a lot of traffic and stuff's
Correct.
going on.
And that's in the middle of the night to say, what's going on? So I spent a lot of time looking in the logs to see if anybody broke in. Nobody was sending emails, so I was trying to figure out what it was. Yesterday when I was sitting there, I kept on seeing it was doing it during the day. I mean, I caught it when it was starting to climb. And I saw that the username of the dentist site is all the way up in the top command, which means it uses the most. I said, So I went to the site, and it took forever to load. And turns out there were how many? 19,000?
Yeah, almost
Comment.
20,000 WordPress comments.
Yeah. I mean, spam. All kind of, it's bots that are posting these. I said, all right, I'll go delete them. You know, figuring I'll go in the control panel, the admin side, and I can just say, check them all and delete them. Well, that's not how it works. First of all, I mean, you have something, check everything and remove or move to trash. But what it does is it moves just that page. And I'm looking all over the place to see where can I make the page display more, and I can't find it. So I try and I go to the PHP MyAdmin, into the MySQL, and see if I can do it there. It's the same story. You have to delete them from the database one by one. I went reading and didn't get anywhere. So then I knocked on Nick's door.
Yes, he drove up to my house and knocked on my
And
door.
I said, Nick, how do we do that? And he said, you see up there on the upper right, it says, what is it?
Screen options. So, yeah, inside of WordPress, inside of every WordPress page, there's hidden things that you don't see.
Right.
And you can control that stuff from the screen options tab, which is in the upper right-hand corner before the login or the logout admin or whatever your username is button. And there's always hidden options up there. So if you're looking to ever do stuff on a WordPress page or a post and you don't see something available, that's the first place to look, is up there.
So set it up. Said, okay, let's set it up. Nick said 1,000. Well, it said set it up to less than $9.99. I said, okay, $9.98. We had to play with those numbers because they weren't working. We settled on what, 250 or 200, something like that. I don't remember. But it went a lot faster. It was still kind of slow, but it went okay.
Yeah.
And then to remove it from, and then we ran into another problem with the URI being too long because there's so many messages.
That was why we were forced to only be able to remove 2 at a time. Was right. Inside of WordPress, which I think is a downfall of the software, is when you're removing comments, it puts all the comment IDs in the URL bar.
Right.
So the server was rejecting the URL right. because it was like, I don't know, 10,000 characters or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was the problem we
lowered the numbers and it went from the trash to empty the trash was easy because there was a button, empty trash, bang, and it's gone. And then Nick also made me aware that, I mean, there are a lot of sites out there on WordPress, and not everybody wants to take comments. I mean, some people use it as a static website.
Most people don't.
Right. Unless it's a blog, you don't want. And even on some blogs, they don't want it. I don't know why, but they don't. So turns out that the resident don't allow comments sometimes doesn't work. So yeah, Nick installed a plugin. Mm-hmm. You were saying?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
He installed a plugin that stopped it. And everything's fine now.
Yeah, and I'm going to quickly get the name of this plugin.
Did it not have CAPTCHA built in that's up to date?
It does have CAPTCHA built in. The problem is that WordPress is known for having security issues. And the CAPTCHA doesn't do anything. Disabling user comments normally doesn't do anything. There's always workarounds. So what I recommend if you're running a WordPress site, installing the plugin called Disable Comments, and it'll shut off the comments on the whole website. It'll shut down the comment section in the admin panel. It is the only way to totally disable any comments from ever popping up on the site again.
So what happens if you want to accept comments? Is there like an upgraded patch or something that you can put in, or an app that you can put in place to enable, more sophisticated capture like there are on some sites now?
Yeah, there's what I would recommend doing if you're looking to take comments on a WordPress site. I would recommend installing a third-party comment app instead of the built-in WordPress one because honestly, it's a total piece of junk.
Right. Okay.
Give me 1 second here. I installed one recently on a client of mine. And I'll
I
get
used
the
to
name
get this
for
all
that,
the
and
time
it's
on,
good.
so
Yeah,
on
and it
the
lets you
site I
sign in
ran.
with. I'm sorry, what?
I used to get it all the time on the site I ran. I just used to go. In the end, it was such a pain to have to do it. I just used to go into MySQL and just delete the whole lot.
Whole table, yeah.
All sort it by date and just delete the last, 500 or so.
So for a client of mine, I installed a comment plugin called Comments Evolved for WordPress, and I'll post a link in here. And it makes it so the user doesn't register on the website. They have to sign in with Twitter, Facebook, or there's one other thing. Let me take a look here. Twitter, Facebook. Actually, you can do it's either Google plus Facebook or a WordPress.com account. So I think that's if taking comments is really important to you, then I would definitely recommend a third-party plugin. For whatever reason, WordPress has just seemed to totally drop the ball when it comes to doing WordPress stuff, or when it comes to doing comments stuff. And then
They're doing updates every day or two.
they are. And then Donovan is saying Discuss is another good comments plugin. There's a bunch of good ones. You just have to see which one fit your needs in terms of social media accounts or however else they do it. But the built-in one is not good, so I would not recommend that.
It seems strange because WordPress is very common for people to just want to have a basic site or basic blog. You would imagine comments would be one of the important things that they would, concentrate on making sure was okay.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when you install plugins, it slows your site down. But there's a certain point where you really don't have you don't have a choice. Disabling plugins on the site really doesn't work too well, so you're kind of forced to install third-party stuff to do it, which in the end it could potentially end up hurting you and your website.
Well, I won't bother starting my blog to let everybody know when I'm drinking a cup of coffee or eating a pasty.
You what?
I won't bother installing a site then, so everyone can be informed when I'm drinking a coffee or eating a pasty or having a humbug or something. That's what you do on social media, isn't it?
So,
and when you're going to the bathroom, don't forget about that.
Nick,
Oh,
in
yeah,
one
bathroom
sentence,
breaks, yeah.
What was the problem with the word WordPress?
Apparently, it was open to bots to come in and display
By
comments.
default,
It was
by default with WordPress, you don't have to make an account to comment. You just type in a username and an email address in it. You can comment.
This is
By
the
default.
same problem that Windows had in the early days. Is not because Windows was so unsafe. It's because everything was open. You had to come and close those holes instead of saying, I want comments, so open it.
Yeah, the comment system is very, very backwards.
But every time you install a WordPress installation, you should go through the settings and decide how you want to enable comments. You have multiple options.
That's only if you know what you're doing.
No,
Yeah.
I disagree. That's trivial.
No, Mike, I don't think it is because you think of, like for example, Amnon's dentist here. They're not using it as a blog. It's
Right.
like a 3-page website. They have no clue how to disable comments inside of WordPress. You would just assume by default that people don't type in a username and an email address, and now they can write whatever they want on your site.
No, what I'm saying is that, look, I am not a WordPress expert like Nick under any stretch of the imagination. I am just probably the step up above a beginner. But if I open the admin panel on WordPress and you start reading through comments, that section of the configuration, as far as I am concerned, is written in plain English and is
Mike,
easy to understand.
Mike, all these were unchecked.
That's not the point. The point is you should decide as for part of your initial installation whether they should be checked or unchecked.
The system was configured not to accept comments. according to the internal configuration. This is why Nick added that plugin. It didn't do the job. I mean, I installed quite a few WordPress for people that wanted to have their own. And this is the first one that I come across that did that. Why? I don't know. But no, I mean, I went in. First of all, I wanted to disable it. So I went in. Well, it's disabled. It's not that it's disabled. You have to check it to allow people to post comments. And it was not checked. So I said, okay, it's fine. Well, they're still coming in. Anyway, I mean, the point here is that Nick saved the day.
I don't think I saved the day, but I just think
save the day.
It's a big problem because WordPress is so easy to install. You can have GoDaddy or HostGator or Bluehost have them pre-install it for you. You have absolutely no clue how it works. And then the next thing you know, you've got 20,000 comments on your blog.
Yep.
And unfortunately, you have to go into three different settings in the admin panel to totally disable comments for your website. It's like settings, discussions, turn off comments for new posts, don't allow anybody to register. I mean, it's not just like a one button disable all comments, and it really should be. Because I think half the people using WordPress aren't using it for blogs, they're using it for websites.
Right. Correct. But it was a good lesson.
You know, I hate having to do passwords. I set up a new blog last week playing with it on a site I don't even use. And I generally use a certain password to get there, and unfortunately it's not working.
Mike, are you using less lights in the room?
No.
Well, you look like a floating head. We don't see any outline of your shirt or anything. Normally we do.
You say that like it's a problem.
There you go. That's like Wendy says. That's better.
Never mind.
That's better.
Now, for all of you guys who like to play with your phones, Andrew is here and Nick is here and Mike, I don't know if you're ever unlocked or whatever, but listen to that. He doesn't have much to do these days. So on Friday, President Obama signed into law a bill allowing mobile devices to be legally unlocked so that consumers can switch between carriers. The legislation was kicked off by a successful petition on whitehouse.gov after the Librarian of Congress decided that cell phones no longer needed an exemption from the Digital Millennium Copyright Act anti-hacking provision. The legislation passed both houses of Congress and is now law. Unfortunately, the new bill doesn't guarantee permanent legality. It simply reinstates the exemption and leaves the DMCA alone. For the next year, cell phone unlocking will certainly be legal, but after that, the Librarian of Congress once again has the ability to void the exemption once every 3 years. So, I guess now the carriers, they really don't care anymore because they sell the phones at this point, right? They don't subsidize it, or do they? I haven't gotten a new phone in ages.
I don't know. I keep hearing things. But if they make the phones too expensive, then people aren't going to buy them. It's nice that you can take it from one carrier to the next if it really, first of all, if it really works.
And I remember that Nick got a phone on eBay where it was. No, that wasn't unlocked. It was. He thought it was stolen. And he returned it. That's right. But it's interesting. The president has the time to do that, though.
Brent says there's big news. Time Warner is increasing the speed times 6 in select cities, including Raleigh.
When is that, Brent?
2026.
Let's see. Okay, is that no? Is there a link that you can put in there?
By the end of the year.
Interesting. Oh yeah, that's a good point. The good point, Tim. Fios did it a few weeks ago for all their customers. They matched their upload with their download speed, which means they went to symmetric, which proved to us that cable and DSL can do it. Oh, it's free. Okay, well, we'll wait and see. The last time when I called Time Warner, Mike, and argued about my bill about 2 months ago, and told them that I'm not going to sign any long term.
Yes.
Is that on your end?
It is. Don't worry
Okay,
about it.
that's fine. That I'm not going to sign long term anything with them because Google is coming, fiber is coming from Google or from RST or whatever, and I may not want them anymore. One of the things that she was trying to push on me, she said, well, what if I up your speed for nothing? So apparently that was already in the making. You can't just decide arbitrarily.
How did you answer her?
Do what?
How did you answer her?
I said, no, I don't need any more speed. I need to pay less money.
Oh, you didn't say that.
I did.
You did not.
And it went from 148, I believe it was, to 124.
You didn't sign a contract, though,
No.
did you?
No,
With-
they don't
with
have
who?
that anymore.
Time Warner?
Yeah.
What did you do? Lower your plan or something?
No. Brent here was mentioning that Time Warner is going to read the chat. I don't know if I want to
Oh, okay.
repeat. But it's interesting. We'll wait and see.
See, the interesting thing here is if they do it in Raleigh, what is stopping them from doing it at other places?
It doesn't. I mean, it says that in different cities, including Raleigh.
I wonder if they'll do it in Albany. Probably not.
I believe they're going to do it in communities, in cities, or wherever that there is a threat of a competitor coming in.
Oh,
So-
Fios is already here, and they don't
Right.
care to
Yeah.
change.
Well, so it's we'll wait and see. It will be nice. It will be very nice. But
By
you know,
they saying speed getting faster, now you'll have 6 megabits up.
well,
Yeah,
I don't know what
6 times
what
would be 30.
times 6.
Yeah, I'll believe it when I
What
see
does
it.
that mean? That if you have 5 megabits, it's going to be 30? I don't know.
Yeah, see, I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know if they could. I don't know if they'll be able to push 30.
Mike, are you reading the article?
No, I'm working on something else.
Okay. Because Brent put one. It's a Biz Journals.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
What's the speed of a typical Wi-Fi router? They're gigabit.
Andrew, why aren't you logging in? Let's see.
Was I correct with saying that?
The what?
Nick, how do I change my password on WordPress login?
Are you signed in?
Yeah.
Go to users.
I don't know how to get. I can't log into it.
I asked you if you were logged in. You said
Let
yes.
me tell you how I would do it. Let me tell you how
Just-
the easiest I would do. I would just put the wrong password in and say I forgot my password.
Yeah,
It's going to send
that's how
you
you
a new
do it.
one.
Forget your password.
Well, it asked me, says, have you forgotten? I said, yes. It says, enter your username. I entered it, and it says it's going to send me an email.
Yeah.
And so far, no email.
Or maybe you didn't put the right email address in there. Possibly.
Well, I always use the same one to manage them, so I don't know what's going wrong. But the good news is it was just a test installation. I'll wipe that sucker out and put a new one in and be done with it.
You could go in the database and change it.
I don't do that.
I can tell you how to do it because I did it yesterday. So it's fresh in my mind. If you have access to PHP My Admin.
I do.
Okay, so go in
Let me
there.
ask you a question.
Yeah.
Can I read the password out of PHP admin, or is it encrypted?
You cannot
and I
read
have
it.
to
It's
just change
it's
No, it's
it? We can't all talk at the same time.
Say it again.
I said we can't all
Encrypted.
talk at the same time.
Okay, Steve, you go ahead.
Encrypted is
Yeah.
the word you were looking for.
Yes, it's encrypted.
I thought that's what I said.
Yeah, but you were talking on top of each other, and you said we can't talk at the same time. Yeah, but if you go in there and you
It says, tell me where to put I says, check your email for the confirmation link. Now, I must have used the wrong.
well, you can change that in PHP My Admin too, and you can see the email address that it's going to.
All right, so this is
Go to-
wasting time. So
Yeah.
let me get to it. So if we go to here and go to PHP My Admin, I know it's here somewhere. PHP. Oh, come on. My Admin, there it is. Okay.
Okay, log in.
Oh, forget it. This is stupid. It said I'm not authorized to log in, then it connects. That's stupid. All right.
And then you see all the tables on the left.
Yep.
At the bottom, there's WP users.
Yep.
Click on it.
Yep.
On the right side, now you should see the admin record. Do you have multiple users?
No.
Okay, so it should be one. It says, and it tells you what the admin.
Comment meta, comments, links, options, post meta, post, terms, term relationships, term taxonomy, user meta, and users.
users.
Okay. The only user listed is admin.
Right.
And
So
the email
click-
is there.
Click the edit on the line of admin. On the left
Okay.
side, there's an edit.
Okay, I got it. Go
You
ahead.
see the
carry on.
password? Now erase it and type the password, but slow down. Type the password. Then on the left side, click the down arrow and choose MD5. After you type it in.
Why can't I keep the same password?
Oh, you have to
You
encrypt
don't
it.
but you don't know what it is.
All right, so I've got MD5 on the left, and I'm just going to type a password.
No.
in to
You
replace-
see, you're not following. Type the
Well-
password and then choose MD5. Go ahead, type a password.
That's what I just asked. Type a password
Yeah.
to replace the garbage that's there.
Yeah.
Okay, then
And then
select MD5.
MD5, and then at the bottom right, there is a go on the left,
Yep.
not that one. At the very bottom to the right, click the go.
One row affected.
Okay, now leave it open and go try to log in.
All right. Very good.
Yeah. So what email address was it? Why didn't you get it?
Because it was set up
You know
it's
why.
a long story.
Okay.
Huh?
Okay. So you know now that that was not the email address that you checked.
Well, it goes somewhere. It's just that
Okay.
since it was a test site, I didn't pay a lot of
Okay.
attention to
Okay.
it. And I actually have the password written down at my office, but I'm not going to be there back till Wednesday, so I was just wanted to play with it while we're on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have wiped it out. It was more of an educational thing than a big deal because I keep all my passwords safely written down, but this one was not being used. So anyway, now back to the show.
On yellow stickers on the monitor,
No, I
right?
actually have a secure place I keep them, but it's so secure it's not here.
It's called a wallet.
Nope, don't keep anything secure in my wallet either. They get lost. Yes?
I know I'm reading here. Charles is saying time to get a DOCSIS 3 cable modem, standard going up to 50 megabits.
Everything on Time Warner, if you have the plan that's higher than the basic, is DOCSIS 3.
Yeah, I didn't
I
know that
think
they
they're
had
for
anything
first.
but.
I think they're doing DOCSIS 3 modems for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they are now, but I'm sure that I'm positive there's people that still have DOCSIS 2 modems. But yeah, I think it's a standard for them now.
Well, here's Nick's favorite subject. Despite support for Windows XP finally ending 3 months ago, the ancient OS has only now fallen below the 25% market share mark. To add to the bad news for Microsoft, after only 9 full months of availability, its latest operating system version, Windows 8.1, has lost share for the first time.
Wow.
For desktop browser share, Chrome is up, taking mostly from Internet Explorer, and Firefox. For mobile browsers, Safari continues to fall, while Chrome maintains strong growth. So, and I read another story about Windows 8 that they decided they are not going to give it names anymore or something. I can't remember. For the updates.
Windows 8 or Windows 8.1?
I didn't print it because it wasn't such a big deal. But the title was that because they did that, that put another nail in the coffin of 8. Anything going in the chat?
We're arguing over scones versus biscuits
Okay, as long as you're having fun.
and cake.
Yum, yum, yum. It's making my mouth water.
Clotted cream?
Is Sean in the chat? No.
No. It's 6:30 out there.
For the
Clotted
last 2
cream
years.
thick.
Hey, what?
Sorry, Mike said clotted cream, and then the subject instantly changed.
Oh.
So it kind of made my comment a little bit void.
For the last 2 years, the FBI has been quietly experimenting with drive-by hacks as a solution to one of law enforcement's naughtiest internet problems: how to identify and prosecute users of criminal websites hiding behind the powerful Tor anonymity system. The approach has borne fruit. Over a dozen alleged users of Tor-based child porn sites are now headed for trial as a result. But it's also engendering controversy, with charges that the Justice Department has glossed over the bulk hacking technique when describing it to judges, while concealing its use from defendants. I know Mike didn't listen to this because he should have had some kind of comments about that.
I'm distracted. Go ahead.
I know. It's fine. No. I don't know that we want to get into it. It was just interesting that they do that. So if there's anybody out there that is doing. This is not this. They caught people with child porn, but they're trying to find people that are doing stuff on.
I don't like the name drive-by hacking. Is that what they're calling it?
That's
or is
what
that
they.
what,
That's
is that
that's
what the
that's
article
what they're
calls
calling it.
Yeah, see that?
Drive-by hacks.
Yeah, I don't. That name doesn't sound good.
No.
Like I have something more professional than drive-by hacks.
Here's something else here that leaves you something to think about. A Houston man has been arrested after Google sent a tip to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children saying the man had explicit images of a child in his email, according to Houston police. The man was a registered sex offender convicted of sexually assaulting a child in '94, reports Tim Wetzel at KHOU Channel 11 News in Houston. He was keeping it inside of his email. I can't see that information. I can't see that photo, but Google can. Detective David Nettles of the Houston Metro Internet Crime Against Children Task Force told Channel 11. After Google reportedly tipped off the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the center alerted police, which used the information to get a warrant. In the same, I think it was the same edition of Slashdot, there was another article. It says a tip-off from Microsoft has led to the arrest of a man in Pennsylvania who has been charged with receiving and sharing child abuse images. It flagged the matter after discovering that an image involving a young girl had been allegedly saved to the man's OneDrive cloud storage account. According to court documents, the man was subsequently detected trying to send 2 illegal pictures via one of Microsoft's Live.com email accounts. Police arrested him on July 31st. So, Google is watching, Microsoft is watching, and as bad as it is for privacy, child porn or the fight against child pornography is winning here.
Now, Amnon, I agree with you.
You can go both ways.
But when does it stop?
I know, that's the problem. That's the problem. It's bad for privacy, and the only thing here that's positive, okay, so they got him because he's a sex offender and he's... Okay, so they got him. But yeah, where does it stop? I agree. I'm going back to, if you got nothing to hide, you got nothing to worry about. I know you argue with me, but that's the way I am. Well, yeah, Dan, it says, that's what it says. Dan is asking, Microsoft is scanning the customer's OneDrive files? I guess there's probably a program just like on YouTube that goes and checks for the copyright. And you all remember that day when Nick was trying to figure out how to do instant replay. And he had a game from, was it the World Series? You were playing with something, some soccer game.
Oh, yeah. Did that get flagged?
And it got flagged.
Oh, damn.
Told you.
So they can see images too. So there you go.
And they're storing it all for years and years and years so that should you ever get into trouble, they can search back through it all and go, look, on December the 21st, 1987, at 3:30 p.m., you did this, which is now an illegal offense. It wasn't then, but we're still going to do you for it now. Welcome to 1984.
Let's see.
I can't find any information on DSL reports about the increased speeds for Time Warner. But that doesn't mean it's not there. 2011, sort by date. Actually, there is something here. It's called TWC Max, MAXX. Anybody home?
I'm here.
TWC Max will be expanding into 7 more markets in 2015. That's not 2014. With San Diego, Raleigh, Charlotte, San Antonio, Hawaii, Kansas City, and Dallas.
Is TWC Max the thing where they give you 100 megabits, or is that something different?
Well, if it's 5 times faster than what they have now, if they've got 30, that'd be 150. If you got 50, it'd be 250.
Yeah,
Or
but
6 times.
don't you remember? Yeah, but is that the previous plan or is that the new plan? Because they did roll out 100 megabits, but I don't know if.
I don't know what it is here, but it is. This was announced on July 31st. Let me see what they have here. Looks like killing off analog channels 2 through 70, Charlotte, rushing market, save markets from fiber. It was still 4.1. So these areas, one guy says these areas should all see upgrades to 100 megabits per second.
Yeah, that's it. It's just 100 megabits down. Your up speed still stays exactly the same.
And why? Well, look, if they would just 10 megabits upload, I'm pretty much okay with 5, but 10 would really sweeten the pot. That's gone 6 by. Some have gone to 6. You know what? This 6 by 1, does that mean bonding?
6 by 1?
So it says some have F100 and Y says you're dead. You still really only get, you still only at 4 by 1. I'm in Southwest Durham and I'm at 8 by 1. Then the answer is some have gone to 6 by 1. We need Donovan to answer this.
Six down, 1 up. I mean, standard I thought was 15 down, 1 up.
That's what that is. But some of the stuff they get on this where I am now, they get into the issue of bonding as to how much capability it has.
Yeah, that's I don't know that you would bond the cable.
No, they do. They do. You can log into the modem, your Motorola modem.
Yeah.
And it will show you how many channels are bonded. And in fact, that was when we first got them, they were bonded had 4 bonded channels. And as I understand now, Time Warner has rolled out firmware that has allowed 8 bonding. But there's also something to do with IPv6 that I don't understand.
Oh, so Turbo is going to 100 by 10.
I heard 100 by 5, unless that's changed.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I've got 30, and I don't need anything. That's fast enough for me.
Well, yeah, for download.
Tim, for home, it's always faster than for business. They want to get you on business. They figure at home you watch TV, the kids playing on this, they don't give you the same on business.
But you don't got the same support either.
Right. But let me tell you something. I had a customer calling me Friday, and they have Time Warner business class. They couldn't get out. So he thought that our servers were down. I said, well, can you go anywhere? And he says, no. I said, well, that means it's your internet. So I had him reset the modem and the router and the switch and all that. It didn't help. I said, well, you need to call Time Warner. He called me 2 hours later. He said, nobody got back in touch with me. What do I do? That's Time Warner business class. So go figure. I really don't think that they are taking it as seriously as they should as far as businesses. But that's how it is when you are the only game in town.
Did you see this new chart?
No, I can't really get into this on the computer here. I guess I could. Well,
The chart that Brent posted. Are you ready for this?
yeah, go ahead.
The new chart says that if you have 35, you're going to be upgraded to 220. And if you have 105, you're going to be upgraded to 320.
I don't think they have 100 in our area. I know they keep talking about it, but I think Charlotte has 100, not the Triangle. See, Dan, we have 30 and 50. Some areas have 35 and 55. I don't know if this is just how. Good morning, Senor Andrew.
Good morning.
How are you?
How are you? How's everything?
Fine.
Hi, Nicholas.
Oh, hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Very patriotic in your American flag T-shirt.
It's Space Invaders, actually.
I see.
Yes.
Amnon, you're looking handsome as always.
Oh, thank you very much.
He's not wearing his
I
flight
have
suit,
nothing
though.
to say to Mike.
Oh.
Mike's on the phone. No,
I know. I
he
see
needs you.
that.
How are you
So-
doing, Andrew?
I'm doing good. Yesterday was my anniversary. We went out.
Bless you.
Excuse me, I had to sneeze. We went out and had a couple drinks, and it was fun.
How many years?
6 years.
Wow.
6 years married. We've been together for 10.
38.
She's a saint.
Are you counting your blessings?
So, Nick, I have something here that you may be interested to know a little information about.
Oh, boy.
Here it is.
Thank you, Dan.
Here it
wait,
is.
let's see. What is it? Hold it a second. Let's see. Yeah.
It's the OnePlus phone.
Oh, you got it.
I did get it. Yeah,
you
it
didn't-
came in a day.
And you didn't turn it around and sell it right away like
No,
others.
I'm keeping this.
You really like it, huh?
It's actually really good. It's a pure Google experience, so you have none of the nonsense on there. It's running Cyanogen mod. Nick, I think you would like this phone.
I hate Android, so.
I know you hate Android, but for someone that has an Android phone, if you have an Android phone, this is the one to get if you have an Android phone. It's totally customizable. You could overclock the CPU, underclock the CPU. You could change the themes by default. I mean, everything is totally customizable on this. This is what Android should be. Or this is what the Nexus should be, the Nexus line.
So how much was it?
$349 for 64 gigs, $299 for 16 gigs.
Yeah, see, I'm not spending almost $400 on a cell phone.
Here's the thing, Nick. If you're going to get an Android phone, you're going to pay $299 anyway.
No, $199.
Tell me which one. The Galaxy S5 when it comes out is $299.
Let's take
My
a look.
LG G2 when it came out was $299. I mean, they eventually drop it after a couple of months, but if you get a phone brand new, the day that it comes out, you're paying $199 to $299. Also, this is 64 gigs, not 32.
Jason
And
is
it's
asking.
unsubsidized.
Jason
You're
is
not locked into a carrier.
Jason.
Well, yeah, you're locked onto AT&T or T-Mobile.
AT&T, T-Mobile.
Jason is asking if it has a removable battery.
The battery is not removable.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I don't like. But they have a 3200 milliamp battery. I did some testing where I had both my LG G2 and this fully charged, and as soon as I went to bed, I took the battery out. I took the power out, and I just let it run overnight to see what it does in standby mode. When I woke up, my this one, the Galaxy, not the Galaxy, I'm sorry, the OnePlus One was at 99%, and my LG G2 was at 90%.
Tim is saying on the chat that none of these fabulous phones run on Verizon.
No, Verizon is always late to the game with them. Because I don't know why they're always late and they take a while. I think the S5 is the best phone you could get on Verizon right now.
So it runs on everybody's except Verizon.
Yeah, it runs on. So you could actually. This is the cool thing with this. You could actually tell the phone which network you want to connect to. So you go to the APN, the access point name. You could do AT&T. You could do Straight Talk. It's already preset for Straight Talk and AT&T. And you could also set your own custom one. So if you're part of a smaller GSM carrier, you could set it to that. You just need to get the information from the carrier. Mine is right now set to AT&T Go phone.
And what else does he say there? They're asking if it gets hot when you talk on it.
No, actually, I haven't done a fair test because I haven't spoken on the phone yet. I did a couple test calls, but I haven't really. The thing is, it's a big screen. It's a 5.5-inch screen. It's a little big for anybody that's coming from an iPhone or a smaller Android phone. But if you've been in the 5-inch territory, I think you'd be happy with it. I like it, Nick. I know you're crapping on it, but I like it.
I'm not crapping on it. No, that is the. Every time these Android phones come out, everybody praises them and says how great they are, and then like every other Android phone, after 3 months, they're just a piece of garbage. I mean, that's just how it is. Everybody praises it now, and it'll be useless in 2 months.
Why do people say it's a piece of garbage?
I have no clue why they say it's a piece of garbage. Because Android is a piece of garbage. The OS is crappy. The apps don't respond half the time.
But you were a big iOS. You were a big Android guy. What happened?
I wasn't a big Android guy. I just needed a bigger phone for my use case, and Apple just basically said screw me, and doesn't want to cater to my needs. So I'm forced to use Android.
Andrew, when
are you going to go to iOS with the bigger phone?
4.7 is not big.
Andrew, when did you get your LG G2?
Last December.
So it's almost a year.
Yeah, 8 months.
Did you, when you use it, did you ever go, shoot, I wish I did that?
Yeah, well, the problem with the LG G2 is, and it's the same problem with all these subsidized phones. They load the phone up with so much garbage from the carrier.
Okay.
So because they're subsidizing it, so they have, just endless amount of. It's like Windows all over again. So I'll get pop-ups every now and then on the phone. I've rooted and uninstalled all this stuff, but initially I would get pop-ups that say, "Hey, you're on a 30-day trial of Guess Who's Calling. Would you want to purchase this for $2.99 a month?" And it doesn't go away. It just pops up every now and then.
Okay.
There's Amazon stuff all over the phone. All over the phone. So I had to root the phone. I had to uninstall everything. And now the phone is I actually like the LG G2 a lot. It's a great phone now. But most people aren't going to sit there and just, uninstall everything.
Right.
They're not going to go and root the phone. So your experience is going to be really bogged down. The other thing is the stock camera on the LG G2 is awful. It's really bad. I've gotten the camera to work well because I've hacked the camera and I've installed some third-party driver and made the camera really good on it. So my experience with this phone is not a true experience, and I wouldn't recommend anybody to. I wouldn't say, hey, go buy the LG G2. Yeah, it's crap, but if you uninstall this and you root it and you hack it, you could actually make it really good. And that's always been the problem for me with Android. This one has everything you want on it. The camera is okay. There's a lot of settings for the camera, more than most cameras on a phone. So it took me some time to kind of play around with it, but it's okay. It's not great. It's like every other Android phone, but I'm sure that if I play with the settings a little bit, I'll probably get it to where I want it to be.
How many megapixels you say?
It's a Sony 6 lens 13 megapixel camera, and it shoots in 4K. You do 4K, you can do 60 frames a second, 120 frames a second. It actually it seems like it's an okay camera. I just got to play around with it a little bit, but I mean it's awesome. I have an AT&T prepaid Go plan, so I just pop in the SIM card, and when I want to use it, I could use it.
All right.
But you know, you got to think about it like this: you own the phone, so if you are on a GSM carrier, you could essentially own the phone, and you could jump from carrier to carrier depending on what you want to use. That's great. That's great flexibility.
You know, maybe we'll see after we'll see what Apple announces, and maybe we'll pick one up. Who knows?
Nick, if you need to get an Android phone, what would you pick right now? Because like you said, you're kind of stuck with Android, and so am I, because I want to be in all the experiences. I totally understand your entire mindset, because I hate Android.
Yeah, Android's a piece of junk.
I mean, there's selfish reasons why I dislike it, but I dislike it for, there's a whole list I'm not going to go into, but if Apple doesn't release a 5.5-inch phone, or if Apple releases a phone that you don't really like, what are you going to get?
I'd have to do some shopping. The GS Active everybody seems to like.
What is that?
That's the Samsung Galaxy Active. That seems to be pretty well. So honestly, I haven't done any research because I've had my current phone for like 3.
The S5 Active?
Yeah, the S5 Active.
What's the difference between that and the S5?
The SF5 Active is like partially waterproof, which is pretty cool. I honestly haven't done any research because I'm not even looking at a new phone right now. Apple's going to have their event in less than a month, right?
September 9th, yeah, less than a month.
Less than a month. They're going to have their event, and from there we'll see what we do. If they're not going to release anything, I don't see them releasing anything larger than a 4.7-inch phone.
Yeah, you know, everybody's talking about a 5.5-inch phone, 5.5-inch phone. I think later down the line they'll release something, but I can't see them doing an unveiling with 4.7-inch phone and a 5.5-inch phone.
See, that would be the smart thing for them to do.
Yeah.
But
oh, by the way, Tim asked, I should have mentioned this. He brought it up. This phone is an invite-only phone right now.
Yeah.
You need an invite to get this. Now, you could get an invite. Mine was given to me on Twitter randomly. A guy that used to work for Crackberry, the website, sent me a message. He knows Suncast because they used to work together. He sent me a message saying, "Hey, I heard you want an invite. I have a couple. Do you want one?" I thought it was a scam. It was like 11:30 at night. I thought this guy was going to take all my information. I'm like, nobody's that nice. So there are invites. People are getting. I'm going to be getting a couple invites that I'm going to be giving away as well.
Well,
I mean, from the looks of it, I was looking at the my order number, and I compared it to a couple of other people that I know that got it. I think they have sold over 100,000 phones in a week, in 2 weeks. And that's a lot of phones for a no-name small company. The company, from what I've realized, they're a Blu-ray manufacturer, Blu-ray drives, the parent company. So this is their first time into the phone game. And that's a lot of phones for a small-time, small-time company. And that's why they're doing invite only. And some of the tracking numbers, it's directly going from it's being manufactured and shipped directly to you. And that's something that I've seen Apple do with the iPads and the iPhones, where if you look at it, it's coming from China directly from the place that they manufactured it. Amnon, I think something like this would be good for you as an Android user.
I don't need to spend those $300 for a phone. I'm still using.
But remember, you are spending that with the carrier.
What do you mean?
So T-Mobile, for example, right? Like I use no minutes. I'm going to actually move over to T-Mobile. I had an AT&T prepaid, so I'm using that. But T-Mobile offers you, they have a plan for $30 a month. You get 4 gigs of data and 100 minutes of calling. I never make phone calls.
Right.
I just want, if you just want the data, that's a perfect plan for you. And it's $30 a month instead of paying I think the average cost of an individual plan now is about $95.
Well, you see, with me, it's the other way around. I hardly ever use it for data. It's mainly for answering the phone when I'm away from the office. Every now and then, I'll log in. Well, I do use data because I get the email to it. But I've been using that, what was it, the Droid 2 Global for the last 3-4 years. It works for me.
Andrew, so with AT&T, you said each line's about $95.
After taxes.
So you can get a family plan for 4 lines for $160.
100, yeah, but it's weird. It's 160 plus like the data.
No, it's not.
I've done the plan. Like I have a
I have it. It's $160 a month. It's for 10 gigs of data, 4 users, unlimited minutes, unlimited texting.
No, listen. I think if you get a family plan, that's a different story. But a lot of people don't have a family plan. A lot of people don't do a family plan. Like right now, I'm paying $210 for 3 people on my family plan.
Yeah, so if you went to the AT&T oh yeah, you're on Verizon then.
Yeah, I'm on Verizon, and it's crazy expensive. These carrier plans are not cheap. I mean, even if, let's say you go, you just want an iPhone, you're going to pay $90 a month. That's a lot of money.
You're still paying, every month, but until the phone breaks, I don't think I will upgrade. And besides, the data now is unlimited.
What do you have, Verizon?
Yeah.
They're throttling the unlimited plans now.
I read that thing. I guess they're trying everything to get you out of it. Because if I buy a new phone, then we lose that unlimited data. And I don't know. And I read another place that they said that a lot of people are asking for a pull-out keyboard with their phones. And I'm saying, I was like that. That's why my phone has it, but I don't think I used it more than 3-4 times. It's becoming more of a nuisance than a feature. I don't know.
I'm looking at my plan right now. Actually, it's $244.
Uh-oh. Nick, are you there? Something happened to the... Something happened to the Hangout.
Very strange.
Yeah, I mean, you still see me, right?
Yeah, you're still there.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, folks, while we fix these difficulties.
That's very interesting. Huh.
If you have a question or something you'd like to talk about in relation to the things we're talking about, give us a call on 919-518-9773. Or if you have Skype, you can connect on Computers 2K Voice.
Wow. That is
Tim's saying it's probably solar flares.
Yeah.
A hiccup.
Well. Let's switch it and let's send them another one. Steve, you take over.
I've got nothing. And I did the phone number, but yeah, I've got absolutely nothing. Let me have a think back to some of the articles and things I was reading this week. Some news regarding something over here in Europe, at least. You probably heard that the High Court ruled that the major ISPs, so the 6 major ISPs, had to block the Pirate Bay kick-ass torrents and a lot of the other popular torrent sites. Well, there was a proxy site set up, Immunicity it was called, and the City of London Police decided that they contacted them and said, you need to shut down, you're illegal. But then I don't realize why a proxy site would be illegal. It's the same as a VPN. They're not illegal. Anyway, they decided that they travel from the City of London, which is 1 square mile in the centre of London. That's their jurisdiction. They travelled all the way up to Nottingham, which is in the north of England, and arrested the guy that was running this website, and he's been released on bail now with no charges at the moment, and they're investigating him. So you think, well, hang on, they're running a proxy site, which allows people to access whatever they want anonymously. How can that be illegal? But they seem to have it in their mind that it is. So that's one to watch, and it's quite worrying. That's the only thing I can think of. My brain's gone completely blank. So please, somebody call in. Give us something to talk about.
That is really weird. Why aren't they? Let's see. Where's Nick? Huh.
So is it Hangouts just have crashed completely and you can't get back in?
Wait, Nick generated another one, so let's see.
Well, it's a good job we're not doing anything live, isn't it? See if I can find anything in my RSS feeds that might be interesting.
Actually, I would think that it was actually Chrome was actually screwed up. That was very interesting.
You're muted, Amnon.
Yeah.
There you go.
What happened?
I have no idea, but I think that Chrome crashed.
Yeah, but why did you start a new Hangout?
I did.
But why?
Because there was nothing on it when I refreshed. Nothing came out.
Okay,
So I said,
there's
okay,
nothing on the stream but the backdrop of the servers.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but Emma, why didn't you just rejoin the current Hangout?
I tried. It gave me the Java broken thing or whatever you call it, the flash.
Well, it's all fixed
It's
now,
fine.
so let's get back to saving the world.
How
So
did you appear?
wait a second. Are you saying that you guys were still on the Hangout? You did not drop?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like Skype.
Okay. Well, it's never happened before, so
Yeah, but that's like when you're in the regular Hangouts. If you leave, the Hangout doesn't close.
yeah. Well, I did. I closed and tried to open, and it gave me the crash.
No, Gene, we're actually glad when these things happen so we can show people how you recover from them.
Amnon, how did you do that?
How did I?
How did you appear like that without twitching your nose?
You mean did it disappear?
Yeah, you just appeared out of nowhere, bewitched.
Turn his camera off.
Bewitched.
Beam me up, Scotty.
So,
well, that
Amnon,
would be
what
nice
is the
if I could do
CPU usage on the computer you're using for the Hangout?
Right now,
Yeah.
67.
Okay.
But it goes as high as 90.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen Chrome crash on the Hangout laptop too when we are on. I mean, I don't know. It's
Chrome crashing is not a new thing.
yeah.
Because of the interruption, did everybody see Tim's comment that his daughter somehow used 59 gigabytes?
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't send somebody around to your house to pick up the phone.
Oh my God, on wireless?
On a phone.
What service is it? Because normally when you hit the limit, they start texting you like crazy, saying that you're reaching a limit. You're reaching your limit.
He said Verizon.
Yeah, when I was in California, we have an 8 gig family share plan, and every gig that I got closer, they said you're getting a gig closer to your limit. You're getting a gig closer to your limit, and when I hit my limit, they said for $10 more you could upgrade, for whatever.
But his is unlimited.
On what the data? On the data?
Yeah.
Huh.
See, ours is unlimited. The question that I would have is how she ever got to 59 gigabytes with throttling.
Oh yeah, because they start throttling after
Yeah.
that.
Well, that may have not happened. That may have happened before they started throttling.
Well, apparently, it wasn't that long ago.
I mean, Hannah, she wanted to get an iPhone. So, and we are all on the same plan, but when she got the iPhone, her plan went to 5 or whatever gigabytes.
It's 2, I thought.
I don't know how many.
3, maybe.
Anyway,
we have an 8 gig plan for 3 of us, and we're hitting 7.92 every month.
I
use none of it.
Who's using it then?
Justin, my father.
But what are they doing?
Who knows?
Porn?
I'd be interested. I don't know how you possibly use 8 gigs a month of data on a mobile phone.
If you watch YouTube video, it's easy.
I think Jess does a lot of photo sharing.
Okay. Does she turn on Wi-Fi when she's home?
She should be connected, but what she was doing to save her battery, she was killing the Wi-Fi, and she wasn't reconnecting it. So I think that was sucking up a lot of it when she was out.
Yeah, we had that problem when my sister first got her smartphone. She turned it off and left it off, and then none of us had any data.
I get emails every month. This month, normally it's like a few days before it rolls over, and they say that number, and it's Hannah's number, used already 80% or 90% of the data. And we have different ways to do it, and blah, 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 blah. Now, I got it yesterday that she used 80%, and it's going to roll over on the 23rd. That's another 13 days. There's no way that that's going to happen. So I probably need to call tomorrow and find out, how much does it cost to add a little more.
Oh, one more thing about this phone. I forgot to mention. They do encrypted SMS. So there's a lot of security features for this phone.
Nice.
And that's what I wanted to ask, if you guys know what that exactly is. There was a pop-up that I should have read carefully when I first did it, but it said, do you want to enable encrypted SMS? And I just said, skip now.
No, you should put it.
Well,
I don't know what it is exactly.
Wow.
Who's encrypting it?
They're servers.
Yeah, never.
Oh, so it's not coming out of your phone encrypted?
Well, maybe it is.
So-
Maybe it is my phone. I don't know who's encrypting it.
Mike, why did you and Nick? Why are you against it?
This is some random third-party company. I don't want them encrypting my text messages.
for a couple of reasons. One, why do it? I mean, what is it that you're going to send by text message that needs to be encrypted?
I need to buy drugs,
Other than that.
pornography.
Other than that, that's not. If you're a Democrat, that's okay now.
If I'm cheating on my wife,
That's.
Why
that's
do you need that encrypted
I
though?
want to be my little secret.
No, something that you would be doing.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly. Why would you want to encrypt? I guess if it's classified information that you're typing, but why would you do that if on a phone?
Oh, look, look.
I mean,
all
if
for
you're
privacy.
if you're putting financial stuff, But I guess at that point you are on a SSL certificate anyway.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what encrypts the SMS. That's a good question.
It's probably their servers.
Mike, I interrupted you. What were you saying?
All I'm saying is I do not see text messaging as a method of communications that should be considered confidential, not only because it is a casual sort of thing, but because you have no idea whether it's encrypted on the other end or being properly handled. I just don't think it's there. To me, that's like going to a Usenet bulletin board and posting an encrypted message.
Okay, so it's called Whisper Push. That's the company, I guess, that does the encryption. Register with Whisper Push to enable encrypted SMS.
This actually brings up something that I saw or heard about last week on Sean Hannity's show. He's actually working. He has an advertiser that is producing a phone. I'll have to try to figure out what it was. Yep, here it is right here. It's called a black phone.
Yeah, I saw that. It's the security phone, yeah.
Fox News anchor Sean Hannity wants you to know that there's an easy way to avoid that nosy government getting all up in your smartphone business. This afternoon, the conservative TV host tweeted an endorsement of Black Phone, a privacy-centric smartphone from Silent Circle. Silent Circle's privacy-centric calling app and its new phone are designed for people and organizations that value security and anonymity. Similar devices and services are popular with LGBT activists in countries that are extremely unfriendly to gays and lesbians.
LGBTQ, Mike.
I'm just reading it, Andrew, including Uganda. It's not lost on advocates that Hannity, whose conservative views are no secret, you reckon, is now promoting a device that is part of the ecosystem that allows gays' rights activists to thrive in dangerous countries. Hannity took his, here's the part that's interesting. Maybe this is not it. I'll tell you in a second. But it says Hannity took his support of the Silent Circle to the national airwaves on July 31st when he interviewed the company's CEO, Mike Jahnke, about what he called the NSA-proof black phone. According to Vic Hader, Silent Circle's chief of revenue, Hannity is currently using the phone as he covers the Black Hat Cybersecurity Conference, which is taking place in Las Vegas this week. The black phone, which runs a custom version of Android called Private OS, costs $629. No carrier offers it on contract. Ars Technica called its performance mediocre, but praised its fine-grained app permissions and privacy-minded communications and networking features. The New York Times said it is definitely more secure than your average phone, but it comes with trade-offs that most consumers might not need or enjoy. Now, here's my comment. My comment to this is that I suspect, and I'm just guessing based on some other things I know, I suspect this whole thing's going to get slapped down by the United States government if the encryption is accurate, because it is the United States has very rigorous and strict export control requirements for the phone, such that if it, for example, uses 256-bit or higher encryption, it is illegal for you to take the phone outside of the United States. Right. And as far as I know, Sean took it to Israel with him when he went. So I'm not so sure that this story has been completely told yet.
So this is interesting. So I posted a link in the chat to the Whisper Push by the CyanogenMod. So it's designed by engineers that have been part of DEF CON, the conference. And it seems pretty good. They encrypted locally and over the air. But think about it, Mike. If you're going to, let's say you're going to, you're going to say something negative about the government, or you're going to another country, like you read in the article, and you're texting back to somebody and you say, this country sucks, I hate the government, I could see that it becoming something that you would want to do. You would want to encrypt your text.
That's not the point. Who's echoing? That's not the point. The point is that the government has a broad band on encryption with regard to export controls. It is, and I'm actively involved in that at a professional level, and I'm just telling you it's not something they take lightly. For example, I don't get all into it, but did you know that if you go to Canada and smoke a cigar from Cuba, that you can be prosecuted on your return to the United States?
Yes, you can.
That's the kind of extraterritorial reach that the government is having on these things. Bruce says that 30 of the top 50 Forbes companies, executives of those, are using the phone. And I absolutely don't doubt that for a bit. But I'm going to tell you that if Eric Holder decides he wants to do a slapdown, it will be hard and swift.
Yeah, I mean, corporate espionage is becoming a bigger thing more and more with breaches in email and text messages and any kind of communication. So something like this is necessary to prevent that from happening.
Understand that I'm not in favor of the NSA being able to listen in. I'm not in favor of anyone being able to listen in to private communications like they are able to do. I'm not arguing the good or the bad of this phone. I'm arguing that if it somehow is able to avoid the regulations with regard to export controls, then I'm all in favor of it. I think it should be. I think it's unfortunate that encryption is necessary, but the fact is that it is. And as we use telephones for business purposes, as the regular telephone fades into obscurity, then I think we need to be able to have some reliance on the security of the phone.
So the bottom line is, if the government wants to know what you're saying, they're going to find out. Even if you're not using any kind of technology, they could still wiretap you. They could still do anything that they want. I mean, just look at the RICO laws, and you'll find out how they could just essentially just spy on anybody that they want, that they deem as some sort of threat.
Look at Dan's
right.
comment.
But before you say that, what John said before that is interesting, and I'm wondering if Dan is being funny or if he's serious, because Dr. John said the black phone deletes messages from the receiver's phone after you send them. And then Dan said, was this phone originally designed for the IRS? Now, I mean, that's I think Dan's being funny, and that is funny, but in reality, these government agencies, because of freedom of information requirements, are required to retain emails and things for a period of time for government transparency, where we're at an all-time high now. And so it should be against the law for the government to use that telephone.
I read a story this week that Yahoo is implementing PGP on their email. What?
Yahoo better get its game together.
Well, but that's.
I can't imagine why anybody would still be using Yahoo unless you're. I mean, even on this lawyer listserv that I'm on, someone was complaining that, who is it? Bell South. AT&T uses Yahoo Mail for their mail servers.
AT&T.
Is that correct?
AT&T, yeah.
And they were in there whining, griping, complaining about how poor it is. And I said, have you ever heard of Gmail? I mean, they're sitting there getting bent out of shape because they have the relationship between AT&T and Yahoo, and you're free to use any other email you choose.
That's correct. And we were talking about Verizon. So about a week ago, the Federal Communication Commission asked for Verizon's justification on its policy of throttling users who pay for unlimited data usage. I know of no past commission statement that would treat as reasonable network management a decision to slow traffic to a user who has paid, after all, for unlimited service, the FCC wrote. Verizon has indicated that its throttling policy is meant to provide users with an incentive to limit their data usage. The company explained that a small percentage of the customers on these unlimited plans use disproportionately large amount of data, and unlike subscribers on usage-based plans, they have no incentive not to do so during times of unusually high demand. Our practice is a measured and fair step to ensure that This small group of customers do not disadvantage all others. Now, this is like the days of unlimited dial-up. Yeah, it's unlimited, but after 500 minutes or 500 hours or whatever, you can't log in again.
Did you know AOL still has several million dial-up customers?
Yeah,
3 million.
I've got quite a few.
3 million. But you know what? 3 million, and if you go back to 1999, they had over 200 million. They've lost 90% of their user base in less than 20 years.
Yeah, and only because they didn't want to do high speed.
But that
Oh,
was sort
broadband.
of planned obsolescence, too.
If they provided broadband back then,
they had
They
the
did.
option.
They did.
they did, but they stopped.
Well, they did it, but the problem was they offered it a couple. I was part of the AOL beta team, and I had AOL broadband for free, and they were offering 640 by 20. I think that was a broadband plan, and I was
Well-
getting 640 by 12 on Verizon, so they were pretty competitive, but it was very expensive, and it was not stable at all.
Back
There
then
were
it
a lot of
wasn't.
problems with the AOL broadband.
Yeah,
What
back
year?
back then.
1999.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1999. I don't know after that.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that just being in the broadband market is the road to riches.
No, but
Look at
it
the
is.
companies. I mean, you could argue that Verizon with FiOS is trying to get out of it because they stopped expanding in Durham. They're not picking up new markets. They're only supporting their existing markets where they have the infrastructure in place, and they're trying to get the most out of their investment. Is what seems to me.
Well, Mike, the reason why they did that is because they shook hands with the other cable providers and said, okay, Comcast, okay, Time Warner, we're not going to compete with you anymore. We're not going to come to your markets, but we want something from you. We want your spectrum for wireless. So they gave the spectrum. It was a trade agreement where they said, we're not going to compete, but we want your spectrum, and they gave them the wireless spectrum.
Mike, I don't think we have Verizon anymore in Durham. I think they sold it to Frontier or one of these companies.
Frontier.
Yeah, Frontier offers. Frontier does good fiber lines, but
They're
it's
not
stopped by
expanding.
Verizon. Verizon owns the lines.
They're not expanding though.
No. But no, Mike, to go back to what about broadband, no, it's not exactly the reason that they would still have them. It's because of the customers. Look at all these customers that are still using AOL email. It's like they are entrenched. So those people would be multiplied by a lot more if there was for all these people that dropped it because they wanted broadband.
But you can still get a free AOL email account now.
Correct. I'm saying that back then, if
I have
they
4 of them.
provided something faster, a lot of these people that left would have stayed with them just because they are
They didn't know any better.
right. Exactly. They don't know any better. Absolutely. We were talking about we always talk about you should back up your hard drive, update your virus scanner, and all that.
Practice safe computing. Yep.
You also need to make sure that your car is safe.
Let me go
I'm an
check.
expert.
I'll be right back.
Research by 2 security experts presenting at Black Hat this week has labeled the 2014 Jeep Cherokee, the 2015 Cadillac Escalade, and the 2014 Toyota Prius as among the vehicles most vulnerable to hacking because of security holes that can be accessed through a car's Bluetooth, telematics, or onboard phone applications. The most secure cars include the Dodge Viper, the Audi A8, and the Honda Accord, according to researchers Charlie Miller and Chris Valasek. Miller and Valasek will reveal the full report, blah, 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 blah. But it's interesting. Now you have to make sure that your car's technological part, electronics part, is secured. What are you doing?
That's the manufacturer's problem.
You can't go and install anything on it to fix it. That's amazing. And these are not, Escalade? Come on.
What's the difference between a Dodge and syphilis?
You get rid of syphilis.
There you go.
Okay.
You can cure syphilis. You can't cure a Dodge.
We got it, Andrew.
All right,
Oh, thanks, Andrew.
For the people who don't get it, Dodge is awful.
Ah. Worst car I ever owned was a Plymouth.
The worst car I ever owned was a Jeep
Andrew.
Grand Cherokee in '99.
Andrew,
Yes, sir.
here's your city. In an incredibly misguided attempt to reduce the quantity of bad reviews, the Union Street Guest House, you know where that is?
I do.
Okay. A hotel about 2 hours outside of New York City had instituted a policy to charge groups such as wedding parties $500 for each bad review posted online. The policy has been removed from their webpage, but the Wayback Machine has archived the policy. If you have booked the inn for a wedding or other type of event anywhere in the region and given us a deposit of any kind for guests to stay at USGH, there will be a $500 fine that will be deducted from your deposit for every negative review of USGH placed on any internet site by anyone in your party and or attending your wedding or event. If you stay here to attend the wedding anywhere in the area and leave us a negative review on any internet site, you agree to a $500 fine for each negative review. Can you believe this?
They can say whatever they want to say. I mean, first of all, it's a crappy hotel in Hudson, New York. So
Hey, don't talk crap about Hudson.
No.
that's Nick's neck of the woods, not mine.
They
That's
have
next
your
yeah.
credit card. They have a policy. Go fight it with your credit card. You agreed when you went there.
You give them a PayPal card, and you could dispute anything,
Yeah, and then you'll automatically win.
and you'll win.
Yeah. But I mean, think about it. Think about the attitude. The attitude is just amazing that they think that they can do this.
They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, well.
I mean, you're staying at their hotel.
Now, for those of you with NAS.
Well, before you finish the hotel,
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
you could always at least tell them to check and make sure their premiums paid on their fire insurance.
Before the internet, they could get away with doing things like
He's
this.
just
But the
NS
outrage that
Yep.
that was caused on the internet by people reading about it made them change their mind.
NSA, they're just kidding. They don't really mean it. I know
But
Mike.
you know-
Mike will never do that. I know him.
No, of course not. But I mean, it's the point being that, of course, you can get in trouble for even making jokes about
Right.
something. But the business of this attitude, and I've read about that. I saw that before, and there's actually a little bit more to the story than that, and I forget what it is. But let's suppose that you stayed there and you found out about it after the fact. You didn't like the place, but you just did not choose to badmouth them. But then you find out after the fact that if you'd said what was on your mind, you would have been in an argument with them over $500. Can you imagine how easy it is to set up fake accounts and to go in and to just blast these guys with negative reviews? They are inviting an attack by anonymous reviewers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just not even difficult to do. I mean, Nick's an expert.
Yes.
In math.
Well, in math too.
So anyway, if you have a Synology NAS is those drives that you put on the network.
Network attached
Yeah.
storage.
Is it accessible to the internet? If it is, you might want to take it offline for a while. Synolocker is a 0-day ransomware that once installed will encrypt all the NAS's files and hold them for ransom just like CryptoLocker does for Windows PC. The virus is currently exploiting an unknown vulnerability to spread. Synology is investigating the issue. So if you have one, they recommend that you take it off the network for a while until they...
Well, only if it's accessible over the internet.
Yeah,
not off
yes,
the network.
only if it's accessible over the internet. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I wanted to buy one, but they were twice the price of the NAS that I did get, so I didn't bother.
What's a
They're
good
very
NAS to
good.
buy?
There isn't.
Well, Synology is a good one, but not at the moment.
What did you ask, Nick?
What's a good NAS?
I don't know. I don't use them.
I have the Netgear has gotten very good reviews, but I will never again, as far as I know, buy anything with Netgear's name on it.
What about, everybody seems to think that Drobo's a piece of garbage. From what I've heard, it's the most user-friendly.
The one I've got is a Zyxel, which I'm very pleased with. It was, cheap and cheerful, but it does the job I want it to.
How user-friendly is it?
Very.
Okay.
As long as you've got a little bit of knowledge about networking and computers, you'll be fine.
I believe that's the one I would buy.
I mean, it's not for me, so that's why I'm looking for...
Because Zyxel it is an OEM manufacturer. A lot of the highly rated ones out there, supposedly, I get so tired of hearing stories that turn out not to be true, but supposedly Zyxel was a contract manufacturer for quite a few of the highly rated NASs out there.
And modems. And routers. A lot of them are actually Zyxels.
Stuff.
Yeah. But Mike, I'm interested to know why you just said what you said about Netgear. That should be interesting.
All right, because this Dan just purchased a Netgear N600 to drive his mixer. Well, I'll tell you why. Now, this is all just my opinion. And Gene says, didn't Spence always recommended Netgear? Not only did Spence always recommended it, I did too.
Me too.
Had nothing but fabulous results until the last two. My next to the last Netgear, who's echoing? Nick?
Oh, I'm not echoing.
I know you're not, but you can look at it while I'm talking.
Well, it's got to be Amnon.
Well,
Not important.
do we start again?
No. The next to the last one that I had stopped handing out DHCP addresses. Just stopped for no reason handing them out. I tried everything I could, resetting, rebooting, reloading, everything. Nope, wouldn't hand out DHCP address. I could static a machine, get out just fine. I went out, bought a new one. The one I bought, now that I brought in, plugged in, okay, great, everything's fine. Now all of a sudden I cannot get into the web interface. Sometimes I can get in for a day. Sometimes I can get in for a week. Then I have to power cycle the router to be able to get back into it. The problem with Netgear now is that some of their equipment supposedly has a lifetime warranty. It at least has a 1 or 2 year warranty. The problem is that if you detect a problem with your Netgear router, you contact Netgear support and you want to get a replacement router in warranty, I am told, and it has been confirmed to me, that you have to pay them $40 for a tech support call to establish that your router is defective before they'll send you a new one for free.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that sounds like a great deal to me, Mike.
Ah, well, there you go. Can I have your credit card, Nick?
Sure.
So, I mean, and I've been told that, and I went through it, and they wanted my information to do it. Now, is that universally true? Is that bad information? Is there another way around? I don't know. I blasted them on Twitter, and they did this, contact tech support, and we'll help you with it. It sounds like you have a problem. And I fired back at them. I said, is there a $40 charge for that? And they have now disappeared. I'm this point in time, I want nothing with Netgear's name on it. And it's really sad because I understand their interfaces. They're easy to set up and work. If the equipment's good, it works really well. Dan, you may have no problem at all with it. Now, I mean, if you're happy with it, go for it. But if I had just purchased the router that I have from Amazon, it's probably been more than a year, but if I purchased it from Amazon recently, when I found that out, I would have returned it and gotten another brand. What brand? Who the heck knows?
I've been very happy with the Linksys Cisco brand.
Well, they went through a period of time when they would constantly drop the internet connection.
And yes, I experienced that as well, but the last 3 I've had have been perfectly fine.
The other ones that I've seen is that are recommended. Sean recommends ASUS routers.
Yeah, now those are expensive. Those are more expensive than your Netgear and your things.
But if it costs twice as much and lasts twice as long, I replace my router typically, but at least every 2 years. Every time even when it hasn't failed, because every time I do, I get a significant performance improvement. And that's okay. I understand technology becoming dated. I don't like a router failing before that 2-year period of time is up and me having to replace it early. But the ASUS routers, Eric likes them, and they're recommended now. They're like anything else. If you go on Amazon, you find a particular ASUS router you like, look it up, and go to the comments, and you're going to hear all these, my wireless range went down, this thing's a piece of junk, the first 3 I got didn't work, I finally sent it back. You're going to see that on all of them. I'm at the point now with routers where it seems to me the best solution is to buy from a place like Amazon where you can get it in, put it in promptly, put it through its paces. If it's not exactly what you want, return it and try something else. That's Amazon's problem. Because unless consumers start pushing back on crappy equipment, then the manufacturers are going to keep shipping it.
Interesting.
The other router, what is this other router that Sean was recommending that's not particularly, I'll post it in, here, I just found it. It's not particularly user-friendly, but unless you're doing a lot of sophisticated stuff, I suspect it's not that hard to figure it out and to make it. That's wrong one.
Is that the Ubiquity?
Yes.
Now that's meant more for doing like, I would say if you're doing more hardcore network stuff,
Maybe
Ubiquities are good.
And it also does not have a wireless access point built in.
Yeah, the Ubiquities are expensive. If you're doing, if you need to get Wi-Fi, a football field away, the Ubiquities, that's like the higher end enterprise stuff.
But I will also that's an interesting tie-in here, also make one other comment that whenever we had this discussion about a year ago, when I was investigating what to do about routers, I said, when I saw how hard it was to reach a real person at Netgear and how they wanted to charge you for it, I said, all right, I keep hearing good things about Zycel. I used to own a Zycel router. Used it for 2-3 years. It worked perfectly. I picked up the phone, called Zycel Tech Support. Technician answered the phone. And I asked him, I said, we do an internet show where we talk about routers. We're not excited about a lot of changes that have been made lately in Netgear systems. We're looking for an alternate brand to recommend. Well, yeah, our routers are really good and we support them. Why don't you give it a shot? Oh, okay, thanks. I mean, just had no real enthusiasm at all, so I didn't go any further with it. But I would be inclined, in fact, the next router I buy will probably be a Zycel or an ASUS. That's what I'm thinking at this moment in time.
I bought a second router with more range to it. It's the Ingenious. I'm not sure who makes it, but I think they do. Works flawlessly.
What is it?
Ingenious with an E. And they have some that are pushing a lot of power out. I mean, wattage wise. Then now they're not cheap. They're not the $40 and $30 that you can get on sale on Sunday from Best Buy. I don't think anybody locally sells them, but it's good quality there.
Dan said he needed something that would, talking about buying a Netgear router, needed something that would talk between the Behringer X32 mixer and the iPad. And he said his home router is an Apple Airport Extreme base station. Well, why would you need a Netgear router if you have an Apple Airport Extreme base station?
It just works.
Isn't that the same thing? I don't get it. Unless somebody says that it's not compatible, which Apple has a major problem with compatibility with a lot of things. So on a completely different subject.
Did you find Ingenious?
No, I didn't look for it.
Okay. Yeah, on a different
A
subject.
buddy of mine just posted on Facebook. So the ISIS terrorists recently attacked Germany, and they're vowing to attack the United States. It's times like this that I'm happy that our borders are secure.
Yeah.
All right, didn't want to get off on that, but I didn't finish my comment earlier on Sean Hannity's use of the black phone. If he took that phone with him to Israel, he did a week of broadcasting from Israel.
Mm-hmm.
If he took that phone with him, he may be in trouble with the feds. He may have violated United States export control laws. And he did it publicly.
We'll wait and see. You can bet that they'll go after him if they can.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you talk about a sitting duck.
Yeah.
Well, and then he was stupid for doing that.
If it's a violation, I don't know what the level of encryption is. I don't know whether there are very strict limits as to what you can export with regard to encryption levels. If it did not violate those restrictions, then he doesn't have a problem. However, if it did, he could be in some hot water. It'll be interesting. If you never hear anything, then I guess either they warned him or he wasn't in violation. But believe me, if he gets into hot water over it, it'll be in every newspaper in the country. See, Dan's saying he found out he couldn't take his radar detector to Italy for the same reason.
Can take it to Virginia.
Well, that's a different thing. That's not an export control issue
No.
to take it to Virginia. That should only be to California and New York. They're in a different world, not just a different country.
So why, you think that the radar detector is because of the technology that's in it?
No, it's for taking to Italy, yes. The reason they won't let you take it to Virginia is because they banned the use of them, not the possession, the use. And some argue that that law is actually illegal, unconstitutional.
So, Nick, I sent you a story last night.
Yeah, I read it. I
don't
can't
know.
really comment on it. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, me either.
Mike,
What?
the story goes, a California man with nothing better to do has launched a class action suit against Sony because he claims he was harmed because Killzone Shadowfall's
Which is a video game.
Okay, that's good to know.
The what?
I'm listening, go.
Multiplayer mode doesn't have native 1080p resolution as Sony originally claimed. He now demands all economic, monetary, actual, consequential, statutory, and compensatory damages, as well as punitive damages from Sony.
Yeah.
Are we back to the hot coffee that spilled on me because they gave me too hot?
No, it's not the same because there was actually some legitimacy to the hot coffee thing.
There's some legitimacy to this one too because they do claim that, and it's on the box and everything.
But how do you get damaged?
What are your damages?
I have no clue. I think the guy's an idiot with that part, but besides that, I think his claim is legitimate, right? They claim 1080p, the game isn't 1080p.
Right. So then they refund his money.
Yeah.
Well, then I hope he gets his money back.
Or equivalent to the money. I mean, he's going to have to. If you look up Rule 12b-6, you'll find out what's likely to happen to his case.
What?
12b-6 is dismissing the case for failing to state a claim upon which relief can be granted.
Well, if he wins, Sony's screwed because everybody that owns that game is going to do it.
Well, but if he is suing to have everyone's money refunded, then he might be able to get that. If he's suing for punitive damages,
I would assume this guy's probably a lawyer or
who knows?
Has a close friend that's a lawyer because he doesn't, from the article, it doesn't seem like a total idiot. He may be. He may just be trying to see how this thing goes.
And here's another interesting story. China seems to be on a mission to isolate itself from the world, at least in terms of technology. After banning Windows 8 on government PCs and raiding several of Microsoft offices in China as part of an antitrust investigation, Chinese officials have now prohibited purchase of several Apple products for government use. The list of banned Apple products include the iPad, iPad mini, MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, and half a dozen other items, all of which were left off of a final government procurement list distributed in July. This is a potentially big hit on Apple, which generated around 16% of its $37 billion in revenue last quarter from China. Apple saw its iPad sales jump 51% and Mac sales boosted 39% in China. Now, the title here about China seems to be on a mission to isolate itself from the world. I don't know about that. I think they want their government to use stuff that they build in China. Chinese.
Well, that's all the iPad stuff's built in China.
Well, yeah, but it's an American company.
So all the work is done in China. Why would you cut off your left hand to spite your right hand?
I don't think they're cutting anything in spite of anything because I don't think Apple is going to stop producing it there because they couldn't afford to do it anywhere else. They are losing the sales, and that's it.
But how many iPads are they really selling in China?
I have no idea.
Clearly not enough.
On Friday afternoon, a U.S. district judge for the Northern District of California rejected a settlement proposed by 4 major tech companies, Google, Apple, Intel, and Adobe, in a class action lawsuit over improper hiring practices. The 4 companies were accused of conspiring to keep each other's employees from being poached, thus limiting their employees' potential salaries and stunting job opportunities. A group of employees sued the 4 companies for this practice back in 2011, and in April of this year, the companies agreed to settle the case and pay back $325 million to more than 60,000 workers that ended up in the class. Today, District Judge Lucy Coe said the settlement amount was not enough and falls below the range of reasonableness.
Well,
I don't trust news reports. I suspect there's a whole lot more to the story. I mean, people at Apple, Google, Intel, and Adobe, they're smarter than that. But the problem is that once people get things in their heads and they start rattling around, then sometimes it's better to make the story go away than it is to win the case. I mean, what are these guys mad about because they're only making $360,000 a year instead of 380?
This is a story that has an update on it, but when it first surfaced, without previous warning, all Mac users running Leopard or earlier version of OS X have been locked out of Skype. Those customers are giving instructions to update, but following them does not solve the problem. The Skype community forum is currently swamped with complaints. A company representative active on the forum said, unfortunately, we don't currently have a build that OS X Leopard 10.5 users can use, but did not answer the question whether they intend to provide one or not. A few days later, they said that they fixed it.
That's ridiculous.
Isn't it?
10.5, let's look at the release date of 10.5.
Well,
Swear to God, this operating system came out like 10 years ago.
It doesn't matter. I thought
Yeah,
you were
it
saying
does.
that it's ridiculous that they would do that.
No, 2007 this operating system
Yeah,
came out.
so?
All right, well then, I don't know. Upgrade your stuff.
I'm still using XP and I'm using Skype.
Yeah, we know.
Okay, so hey, Steve,
Hello.
Torrent Freak is reporting that the City of London police, a private police force in government-backed livery with an authority that does not go beyond the corporate-controlled City of London area. So not to be confused with the Metropolitan Police. So there are two different police forces in London, I guess.
There are, yeah. This is what I was talking about earlier when everything went dead.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't hear you. Oh, okay.
But carry on anyway, because I was just going from memory rather than reading.
So you
it.
were talking about the domains?
The domains and the proxy server
Yeah.
immunicity.
Yep. Yeah, that's
But
it.
I was only doing it from memory, but if you want to read out the article, it is
It
interesting.
says that
and
they seized control of a number of domains, including Immunicity, a general proxy server that was set up as a censorship circumvention tool. This appears to be their next step after placing banner advertisements on websites.
Just still
So-
stupid if you ask me.
Well, maybe they don't have anything else to do. What do you think?
their attitude is that if you've got adverts on your site, then you're making money from copyright infringement. Well,
No.
you're not. You've got adverts on your site to pay for your server costs. It's not because you're only making money from copyright infringement. That's just insane.
No, Steve, servers are free. Why would you pay for web hosting?
Yeah, of course. But the point I made was that the City of London Police, its jurisdiction is just 1 square mile in the centre of London. It's basically it's a city police force for the bankers. And I did say bankers then. So why they think they've got the authority to go outside, and this was in Nottingham. It was hundreds of miles away. And they went and arrested this guy for running a proxy server. You know, giving an anonymity to people. And he was running it for free as well, so they can't get him on the fact that he was, had adverts on there and was making money. So what the hell they're going to charge him with, I really don't know.
And listen to this here. After January 12th, 2016, only the most recent version of Internet Explorer available for a supported operating system will receive technical support and security updates. For example, customers using Internet Explorer 8, 9, or 10 on Windows 7 SP1 should migrate to Internet Explorer 11 to continue receiving security updates and technical support. From the blog post, Microsoft recommends enabling automatic updates to ensure an up-to-date computing experience, including the latest version of Internet Explorer. And most consumers use automatic updates today. Then commercial customers are encouraged to test and accept updates quickly, especially security updates. Regular updates provide significant benefits such as decreased security risk and increased reliability, and Windows updates can automatically install updates for Internet Explorer and Windows. I love how they say that this is after January 12, 2016.
Yeah.
We'll see if that happens.
Well, we're going to have so many other problems on January 2016. That's going to be our.
Well, the thing is that, oh yeah, that's true. Either that or we will have. No, that's right. We will. Yeah.
It's 2017. Never mind.
Yeah. What else? Oh. All right, you want me to keep on reading? I will.
Or you could sing if you wanted to.
You don't want to hear me sing. Here's something that's pretty interesting. Laptop Magazine battery tested the leading phones on all 4 major U.S. carriers and found that the same models on T-Mobile typically last 1 to 3 hours longer on a charge. Now, Steve, if you get killed, just hold on.
Okay.
No, it's fine. It worked this time. Hey, Dan.
Hey.
What's up?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, boy. I'm trying out this X32. But the way it's configured is kind of funky in a solo mode.
You should not be using solo.
All right. How about now?
Well, I mean, it's working, but in terms of setting it up for proper operation, I don't know of anyone who uses solo mode for normal broadcasting operation. It's really confusing and does some really wonky stuff. I mean, you should have, right now, you should have your mixer set up so that if your mic is in channel 1, one of your auxiliary sends is sending the mic 1 audio to Skype. End of story. There should be no solo mode involved.
Yeah, because right now I'm hearing double tracking of what you're saying.
Turn the web off. Hit mute on my picture on the stream over there on the web part, and mute that audio, and you should only hear single audio.
You know what he's talking about, Dan? Dan? Now we don't hear you.
No, it didn't help. Let me try it again, but it didn't seem to help. How about now?
Well, we're not hearing it. You're the only one hearing it.
Right.
Okay. Well, I guess so how do I? Well, maybe it canceled it. I did.
Did you mute the video on the web?
It solved it. All right. But when I was setting this thing up with the Behringer tech folks, and I told them I wanted to do mix minus on this new X32, the rack mixer, and I said, look, I really want to mirror image what I had already set up with you, Mike, on the 1204 USB.
Hold on a second. Mike, are you still with us? I didn't think so.
Yeah, he locked up, and that really confused me because I thought it was somebody.
I think it crashed again. Hold on.
You know, I have the worst luck when I call in on this show.
No, I mean this happened before today too,
Oh, okay. No.
earlier. So let me log off. Yeah, let me get out of this and completely close Chrome.
And you seem to be out of sync too, Amnon.
Out of sync?
The lips are
Oh.
moving.
Yeah, there's always a couple of second delay, if not more, from the video stream because we're coming as it is live through Skype, but the video stream is always a few seconds behind.
You sound really good.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, darn, you sound like you're in a professional studio.
Nope, just sat here in my living room with a ATR 2100.
I mean, there is no noise floor to speak of.
I'm just very lucky at the moment. There's no traffic racing past my house, which is good that this show comes out on a Sunday because it's usually quite quiet.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
Anyway.
Now you can talk to Mike.
Okay, Mike.
Mike, you
now
with
that
us?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, Mike, I only set this up on solo because that's what the tech folks at Behringer recommended to. So in essence, I'm not using any of the sound card within the Mac Pro. So it's just USB and that's it. So the mixer is basically replacing what I formerly used. Now, I agree that there's problems because there's a mismatch between what the volume I hear in my headsets versus what I hear of myself when I'm talking. Now, it seems like we're doing okay right now. I hear myself modulating at the level I want, plus I'm hearing you in return. But I maybe offline you could help me on this config because I figured since this was a digital mixer that this was kind of like the way it has to be versus using the inserts that I had before.
Well, actually, that part of it's going to be about the same. The question that I have for you and what I've been trying to learn about the X32, and this is the part that frustrates me. I never ask manufacturers for anything free. But if Behringer had a brain, they would send me one to evaluate because I talk to a lot of people every month about things, and I've sold a lot of Behringer mixers, never made a penny off of any of them. That's not why I do it. And there are some pivotal questions, and one of them is that when, for example, now, whenever and you may not know the answer to this yet, but this is something I would like to know the answer to. Whenever you go into Skype and select the input to the microphone input to Skype, do you see all of the USB channels from the Behringer 32 mixer? In particular, can you send an auxiliary channel of the X32 into Skype over the USB?
Yes. In fact, I'm on aux 17 for that purpose. I'm using the bank 17 through 24. And when I select that selection, I'm using the iPad for integration just to, and
I hear what you're saying, but I don't have a feel for that. For example, if you just said I was using aux 17, I would have said fantastic, but you said 17 through 24.
No,
I don't
that's
know
just
what that means.
That's just a bank. They're broken down in segments, so it's actually using 17 and 18 like we would have had set up like 7/8 on the 1204 USB. So
Right.
both meters,
There's
17
no
and
reason
18
to
are.
use two. Why would you use 17 and 18?
I don't know. When I was talking to tech support when I got this thing, I said, look, what's the most sanitary way to do a mix minus to go Skype? And the guy seemed fairly knowledgeable and, well, a hell of a lot more than me. And he said, look, this is how we're going to do it. So I'm using for whatever reason, I'm on 17 and 18. They're both dancing just below the landing pad. And then channel 1 is set down to about level 10. But I have noticed, I'm not convinced this is right either, only because one of the things that is not digitally controlled by the Surface that is strictly manual is the headphone volume. That's still analog. You still have to physically turn the dial on the chassis on the console, right, versus you don't have any sound capability management between the two sources in your preferences on the Mac. I mean, they're all grayed out. And he said, well, that's because we're using the mixer as your audio card, and it's far superior Midas and circuitry and whatever. It does sound clear, but there are issues that aren't sorted out yet, because I just got this thing.
Right.
And
well, my problem with Behringer, and I've said this to them, so I'm not talking about them behind their back. What was that?
I don't know. It wasn't me. It's a new sound to me, so I don't know where it came from.
Somebody's USB device was unplugged.
No, this is
what it was.
Hangout.
It's probably M9's crashed part of the Hangout, probably disconnected. Hopefully that's what it was. Anyway, the issue that I have with Behringer is they don't know squat about podcasting. That guy may or may not understood what a mix minus was, and then he keeps talking like he knows what he's talking about. Behringer is geared towards the recording, music recording. They're not interested in podcasting or internet broadcasting. Those markets are so infinitesimally, incredibly, microscopically small in the scheme of things that they're just not interested. That's why when I talked with them, I said, look, do you want, and originally 3 years ago I had a relationship with them. They wanted me to be their primary blogger for podcasting on Behringer.com, and I was unable to do it at the time. Then the company went through some changes, and I really have no contacts at all there now. But that's why I was offering to sort of put together some like I write the articles for IAIB and some of the other places that apparently have been very helpful, because people contact me all the time. I was on the phone on Skype with a guy for an hour last night who saw me on the IAIB spotlight and had specific questions to his setup, and we spent quite a bit of time on it, and I'm confident it helped him. But I offered to do those same sorts of things for various Behringer mixers, and I can't even get a no out of them, much less a maybe or a yes. Even the 802, there is a big need for someone who knows what he's doing to do a YouTube video about how to set up a Behringer 802 mixer for podcasting with one Skype guest.
Should I do something like that?
I think you should, but now you've got the old 802. The one you have is not even available anymore.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think so. They've changed it to the Q802.
The Q802 was available when I got mine.
I think, though, that I could be wrong. I don't know. I have no relationship with them, but I think they either have or are discontinuing the one you have, which would make your video dated.
So on Amazon.com, the Behringer Xenix 802 Premium 8-input is the #1 bestseller in stage-powered mixers. So
is that exactly the one you have?
Yes, I purchased this item April 18th of 2012. It's the exact same. When I searched Behringer, I just put 802 into Amazon, and that's the first thing. I see the Q802, but the Q802 is $15 more.
It has more features built in that make it worth it.
Yeah, it's got the USB.
It's got wireless. But eventually
wireless.
Yeah, I forget what I've never touched one, so I just go by what I remember. But it would be helpful to have, I mean, even with all due respect to some of the people who have posted videos, the questions they answer and the configurations they suggest are not the questions that I'm getting. I like to keep things simple so that you can understand it, you can repeat it. If you need to move your studio, you can tear it down, you understand it well enough to put it back and don't just have to take pictures of things and make a note of this plug goes into this hole. You understand why the plug goes into the hole, and then you can move on with what you want to do. So, but again, I don't care. All I'm bringing that up is because I do recommend Behringer mixers over Mackie mixers because of the built-in USB. And I took it upon myself about 3 or 4 or 5 weeks ago. I contacted tech support at Mackie, and I told him what it was that I had a problem with, and the guy I talked with absolutely understood podcasting, totally understood what was going on with the USB ground loop problem they have or had on the Pro FX series of mixers, and offered no solution.
What?
No, I said, yeah, I was nothing.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was done.
Oh.
And offered no solution or that they were going to look into it, nothing like that at all. Just, oh, well.
No, he
Suck
knew
it
exactly what the problem was, but he had no solution. He knew the company was not gearing up to address the issues that podcasters need. They were in the space for recording engineers and doing a good job in meeting the needs.
Insane.
Well, why should they, though? Why should they go spend tens of thousands of dollars to tool up for issues that are important to podcasters whenever they would never get their money back? Look, we talked about the personal audio lawsuit, the podcasting patent, as it's called, where Adam Carolla was sued, TogiNet, How Stuff Works, ABC, CBS, NBC. All these guys were sued for potentially violating the podcast patent. And as the lawsuit was progressing, one of the first phases after you file the complaints and get the answers is then that you proceed into discovery. And in discovery, if I'm suing Amnon for a business transaction where I think he has unfairly benefited from something he sold me, then when I sue him in discovery, I can issue a demand for his book work for the last, 3, 4, 5 years. I want to see a copy of every check he's written. I want to see a copy of every bill he's paid, how much money he's made, how profit he's made. All this business information that theoretically should be nobody's business. The court orders you to provide that information. And according to what I read on Personal Audio's website, they have a news release there that after they went through discovery, they saw that none of these podcasters was really making any money. And since they didn't have any money, they didn't have the potential to pay the company a big royalty or big damages. So they dropped the lawsuit. The difference was that Adam Carolla his legal expenses, some or all, are being paid by people making donations to him. It's therefore theoretically costing him nothing. So he said, well, let's just stay in the lawsuit. Let's go ahead, and you guys made a charge here. You're challenging my livelihood. And just by saying, okay, we're going to drop it for now doesn't make me happy. Let's proceed. And then the Personal Audio started issuing press releases. Well, we tried to let him out, but instead of him getting out of the lawsuit, instead what he's doing is he is hitting up his contributors to make contributions to help him fight his lawsuit. And we want his listeners to know that he doesn't need to be raising money because we're willing to drop the lawsuit. So in essence, he called their bluff on it. It remains. It'll be interesting to see how it's seen. He could end up spending $1.5 million to win the lawsuit before it's over and done with. I did a little research on his legal team, and if the information I found is correct, Carolla has a crackerjack legal team. I mean, these guys, not only do they know the patents and patent law, but they are well connected in the court that the case will be heard, and it goes to trial in September.
But at the end of the day, that's going to benefit everybody that's doing podcasts, isn't it?
It will only benefit them if the patent is found to be valid.
Yeah, but I mean, it's going to give a definitive answer, yes or no, whether it is valid or not, which is what everybody is at the moment is up in the air about.
Well, not everyone, but a lot of people are, and you are correct, Steve. There is a big unanswered question there. We don't know if it's valid. And so
their opinion of, he's raising money to pay his legal fees. Well, quite right. Why shouldn't he? And why are you making a big deal of it? It sounds to me like you're a little bit scared.
Well, I can't read their minds, but I have to say that what I read was a little surprising to me based on responses I've seen, and that is that you sue someone, then they gear up to fight back, and you start criticizing them for doing it.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, it sounds like they're muck spreading to make him look bad, but then that's
Well,
pretty standard format anyway, isn't it?
yeah, I mean that's if you're a conservative in this country, it happens to you every moment you're awake and half the ones you're asleep. But what I would suggest though is that personal audio, if they honestly feel that their patent is valid and they have a right to protect their patent rights, then I respect their ability to, and their right to do that. Whether that's true is yet to be determined. But what's happening is that personal audio offering to drop the lawsuit could all of a sudden just all the money you stop the lawsuit and you don't spend any more money for now. The other side of that is that if this does make it all the way to trial, if in that trial, if the court determines that the podcasting patent is valid, now where does that leave Adam Carolla?
I honestly cannot see that it's going to come back as valid. Not with what they're claiming it should cover. I mean, that would make everybody that's doing a podcast liable to them.
Only now. See, that's not quite correct. And this is where a lot of people who don't understand patent claims, there are very, very specific conditions that have to be met to violate the metes and bounds of the patent or to infringe at least one or more claims. And I got to tell you, patent attorneys argue over the meaning of the claims, and so for us to say it's not valid it's based on ignorance. We don't have that knowledge. It's only valid if the court says it's valid. Well, let me rephrase that to be more accurate. It's only invalid if the court says it's invalid. A patent is presumed valid by the federal government. And so when you go into court, you're not saying, all right, we have to prove our patent is valid. When you go into court, we have to defend the attack on the patent to prove that it's not invalid.
Yeah.
It's a little different approach, but a significant approach, significant difference. I don't know who's going to win. We'll see. I mean, obviously, the hope for the podcasting community is that that when it goes to trial, there will be a Markman hearing to determine the scope of the claims and things like that, and then the court's going to render a decision that the patent is valid, the patent is not valid. If the patent is valid, then the court has to enter a second decision as to whether Adam Carolla's company, Carolla Digital, I think it is, are they infringing that valid patent? And then they will make that second determination. But if that patent is found valid and Carolla is found to be infringing, he's going to be on the hook for a bunch of money. He may even be on the hook for their legal fees because he's on notice that he was infringing. This is all very heavy-duty legal stuff, and none of us knows how it's going to resolve. The other part of the problem is that if the case is decided in Personal Audio's favor, then that is going to really load them up to go after ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS, Cliff Ravenscraft, John Lee Dumas, and all of these mega millionaires.
And put the frighteners on an awful lot of other people as well.
Well, the point was that, again, there's so many ignorant people commenting on the subject, it's really laughable. But what happens is if the patent is upheld and the modern system of RSS feeds to operate a podcast, if that happens, if it's upheld, it's not going to put podcasting out of business. It's going to be that a certain amount of money, of revenue, has to be paid to the patent rights owner to prevent them from coming after you for patent infringement. If there's no money in it, then the royalty is going to have to be reasonably low. I mean, look at music. If you want to play music on the internet, you have to pay licensing fees. For some people, they're cheap. For other people, they're cost prohibitive. I would envision the same sort of financial arrangement on that patent, and that may be that the average consumer has to pay $10 a month for licensing fees, whatever. The other thing I would suggest that's probably already in process is that someone will figure out a way, I'm sure they've already done so, but find a way to do what's called design around the patent, which means that, okay, here's what has to be done to infringe the personal audio patent. Well, this setup, this alternate arrangement that Nick comes up with to set up a podcast, it requires one more click and it's not as convenient. But once you've done it 3 times, you're used to it and it's not a big deal. Then that probably will be the design around.
Unless they come back with a decision like with the Aereo, and well, you look like a cable company, so you must be.
Nick, it looks like
ridiculous thing that's happening at the moment.
Nick, you had a comment earlier that you were trying to say something.
No.
Oh, okay.
He was yawning.
No, I wasn't.
No, he forgot.
I didn't say anything. If I said something, I would have said something.
Okay. Fine.
So for the time being, is this how does this thing sound going through the mixer?
Well,
Sounds great to
we're
me.
listening through a Hangout, and Hangout audio is terrible, contrary to what people say on Google Plus. But I mean, as far as what I hear, I can still hear the acoustics in your room. But I would say that the sound in and of itself is fine.
Listening through Skype, it sounds good to me.
Steve, your audio to Steve would be better than your audio is to me.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, I see holes in this setup, so I guess I don't know if you're familiar enough with this setup that I'm doing that what may be generic in nature, like solo versus using the method we had set up on the 1204 going into the sound card.
I can't think of a reason to use solo in podcasting. I can't think of one. I've got the Behringer PreSonus 16.4.2 mixer.
Right.
I don't even know how to use solo on it.
Well, the problem I had is that I told him, look, I can use the microphone and hear myself when I'm doing voice dictation and that sort of thing and phone calls on Skype. But when I said I can't hear my talkback feature, if you will, generically speaking, when I'm trying to make a Skype call. And he said, well, we'll set it up on solo and slide this here and do this there so that you can actually hear yourself modulating and still the other caller won't hear their voice. And that was his workaround. But what I'm finding out is that if like the volume comes in too loud over my headset and I go to attenuate or turn down the volume on the headset, it also brings down the modulation on the microphone, so it doesn't really work. I mean, if I crank it down, then I can't hear myself talking on my microphone.
You have the same problem Nick has. Nick wants to hear himself louder in his headphones than is normal operating level.
It's not that I want to hear myself louder, it's that I can't hear myself.
That's right. That's how it is.
Right. That's because you want to hear it louder than normal people do. Because I can put my headphones on here, and with you guys coming back to me, audio hitting 0 dB on the VU meter, my microphone hitting 0 dB, it sounds fine. I can hear myself well. I can hear you guys at the same level. But some people prefer to have that volume coming back to themselves louder. And there is a way to do that. I don't know, Nick, did you ever change it using the submix like I told you to?
No, I never ended up doing it.
All right, there's a way to do it. You can cheat the system, and because Nick has a mixer that's bigger than he needs right now, he has the ability to do that. And if you look at the picture of Nick's mixer, you will see that he has subgroups 3 and 4 turned off. He's not even using them. What he could do is he could create a submix just for his headphones, and that submix he would feed the submix with an aux send, crank his headphones up louder to that submix, and have normal operating level for everything else, and he would be louder in his headphones to himself without screwing up the levels going out through his main control.
Correct.
That's sort of what I do now. As you see, I'm not using headphones. I don't like using headphones, and I have a speaker going on in the background, and the way I do that is I create a submix. I have a subgroup, a submix, And that submix does nothing but operate my speakers in my studio. And what I do is I have the Skype, the Hangouts, the music, everything is assigned to that subgroup except my microphone. And since the subgroup only feeds the speakers, everything going through my mixer comes through the speakers except my microphone. That way I don't get feedback on my microphone.
And that's how Mike set me up.
And now, for example, I just turned off I just added myself to the subgroup, and if you listen, what happens? You can hear it echoing in the background.
Oh yeah.
That's because my voice is coming through my local speakers at the same time it's going out over the mixer. Hear the feedback?
Right.
So what I do is I take myself out of my local speakers, and now you don't hear that echo with me talking. Cool, huh?
So Nick, did you not do that for a reason or what?
It's not that I'm lazy. The way that I was going to do it originally was so I use subgroup 1 and 2 now to power a headphone amplifier. So I'm not using a headphone output on the board. I'm using the subgroups as my headphones. So what I was originally going to do was send everything but my microphone to the subgroup. Feed that into a Behringer 802, and then use an aux send of my microphone, which is on channel 1, send that to the Behringer 802 as well on a separate channel, then feed the headphone amplifier with it so that I could crank up my microphone on the 802 without affecting the level that's going out to the live stream. Okay. A little convoluted of a way to do it, but
yeah, it's hard to follow when talking it through, but
it would work.
You can do the same thing on yours, Dan. Internally, you don't need you need an external headphone amp, but you don't need an external mixer to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about that. I looked at the Behringer HA 400, I think, the smallest one, and I was thinking, well, maybe if I can just put an inline between the headphones out to the amplifier, then I can make adjustments on my microphone, and then just the headphone amplifier, I can attenuate it down and just kind of cheat the system so that I can adjust the volume that way without affecting my output on the microphone. That's too simplistic, right?
No, you don't. No, just the concept, Dan, I think is where you're missing the point. You don't need to cheat the system. You need to use the system capabilities to do what they were designed to do, to give you the flexibility. And if Nick will make a noise so that the Hangout switches back to his camera.
Check.
And I guess, Amnon, can you lock
it? Just click on
the
Amnon.
I did.
Click on him to lock it, because I want to talk about something here in just a second that I think if anybody's still watching is interested, I think this may be useful information. But if you look at Nick's mixer, you see on the far right-hand side those black knobs. He has two knobs that are at what we call the landing spot or unity gain. He has the next two turned off, and the last single knob is actually a stereo fader that is also at the unity 0 or landing pad position. And Dan, it's not just you. This is the number one problem that people have with mixers, particularly new people with mixers. They get one in, they look at it and say, my gosh, look at all those knobs. What do you do? How do you ever figure out how to work that? I mean, that's like NASA. And that's not the case. The reality is that if Nick will take his finger and put it on one of the channel faders and then point it up and down, that's called the channel strip. And that channel strip just goes straight up and down, just point all the way up, keep going up, all the way up, move your finger all the way up. All those knobs, everything straight up in that column, just all the way up in that single column, all those things apply to that one channel. So what that means is if you learn how to operate those knobs then for that one channel, now you know what the knobs for every channel do. And that is, people don't get it. They see all the knobs, they get intimidated. when reality is every knob in that strip, that column, that vertical column, everything in that column applies to the one channel. So you have to spend a lot of time mastering that single channel, and then you know about 80% of what you need to know on that mixer. To further simplify things, you do not need to be using the equalization. That's the bass, medium, treble. Those should be at 12 o'clock. You leave them alone. The red and the orange buttons are the auxiliary send controls. Those are used for very particular purposes. Most people, once they set those correctly, they rarely have to touch them again. It's set and forget. Unfortunately, these mixers are designed for music recording purposes where these functions are very useful. Equalization, for example, is mandatory in a recording studio in modern times. They didn't used to have them in the old days. But you really have to know how to use those. It's like gate, compressor, equalizer, those things. You really have to know how to use them, because if you misuse them, you'll do more harm than you will good. So it's not as complicated as it seems. But here's the point I was going to make. If any video I would ever make that would be the most useful, it would be that in looking at this mixer, and it's the exact discussion I had last night with Joe, and that is that the first thing that you do is set the master gain control at the unity position. The 0, the unity, the landing pad position, where Nick has it set. And what I say to people is then you need to get some epoxy and glue it into that position. Don't ever touch it again. Now, I'm joking. I don't want you putting epoxy on your mixer. It's not necessary. But I say that to make a point that you should not be using that control to change things, except in very rare circumstances. Andrew Zarian's got an $8,000 mixer console in his studio. I'm not sure, I'm not positive, but I don't even think he has a master control, because people in broadcasting setups don't need them. He also does not have equalization or tone controls on his channels, because you don't need them. You set your equipment up to operate the way it is supposed to operate, and you don't need all that stuff to screw around with and mess up. Now, in setting up this mixer, the second thing is if Nick will go over to his slider that has the, like say, his microphone channel, which his microphone is on channel 1. You will notice, if I'm seeing correctly, that his slider is set up at the 0. You see that little 0? He's got a line in the middle of the knob, and it's pointing to the 0 or the landing pad position. You put the mic fader there before you even talk into the microphone. You set it right there. Now, what happens then is once you start talking into the microphone, if the levels on the VU meter over on the far right hand, don't switch over there. Well, you can if you want to, but if they're not in the right position, and that is hitting 0 or green without going constantly into yellow, never into red, then the next place to adjust it is up above, up in the channel strip. There is a knob up there that is labeled, on this one it's labeled gain. You see the white knob at the top where it says gain over to the right-hand side?
Yep.
All right. Then you use that gain control so that when you talk into the microphone, you get the proper level over on the main mix VU meter. Now, don't let Nick's confuse you, because you will see that his gain control is at about 10 o'clock. And the reason why is because he's going through a DBX 286 mic processor that also has built-in gain. And for most people, that gain control for a dynamic mic is going to be turned up almost all the way. The output of a dynamic mic like an ATR 2100 or an AT2005 is very low, and it's very normal to turn that gain control way up.
Well, I just mirrored everything you said, because I have basically what Nick has, except I'm using a different processor versus his 286. I have the Neve.
Right, right.
So, yeah, and everything you just said, I went and did landing pad on
Yep.
I followed right along, and I attenuated down the channel for the same reason, because I prefer the clarity, or I just like the Neve better. I don't know why, but so I'm following you so far.
All right, but now look also, before Nick moves his camera, look over at his channel 6.
Yeah, that was the one you just had me move.
Right, but that's fine.
I'm actually on that.
The point being that if he were using that for audio, which he's not right now, but if he were using that for audio, and you look over and see that slider where it is all the way up,
right,
something's wrong. You don't have the input level. See that trim control? If he were using it, then that would mean that trim control is set wrong. So he would immediately go back, put it back on 0, and then adjust that top trim control so that slide control is in range. The reason you do that is because in the middle of a live broadcast, if something happens and you need a little more level, then you can reach over and hit that control and move it up. If it's really loud and splattering, or you want to get rid of somebody, then you can turn it down. It gives you control over the audio. And this is probably more than most people want to know, but the audio, the gain increase, they say, well, why is it in the middle instead of at 3/4 of the way up? And the reason why is because these sliders have what's called logarithmic taper. The volume increase between where it is at 0 and maximum is a lot greater than the attenuation is between 0 and the same physical distance down on the slider, but we don't have to get into all that.
But if you notice, Mike, and you didn't bring this up, which I was surprised. You do if I show the whole.
Are you castigating me?
Yes, Mike doesn't know anything. If you show the whole board here, like you said, NASA control panel, I'm not hardly using any of the knobs. For each channel, I'm using maybe one aux send. I'm using the gain and the fader. So out of all of those knobs, faders, buttons, and just everything else on each channel, I'm using maybe 3 or 4 of the knobs.
Right,
and
that's
buttons.
that's the way it should be.
And
Yeah, I'm not using any of them.
But this is exactly what Scott's saying in chat, and he's exactly right. This mixer is meant for live sound and recording applications, where these live sound and recording particularly, I mean, Scott makes a good point. Live sound absolutely has to have equalization, because you can have in live sound, you can have a microphone that maybe doesn't have optimum placement on an instrument. Being a little bit off axis, it might sound dull. You may need to crank up the treble a little bit. Or you may have a microphone that's on some instrument that's too close to the bass drum, and every time the bass drum hits in the band, then you're hearing the bass drum come through on an instrument near it, and you can actually trim some of the bass or do low cut and do things like that make it useful. But these things, when Nick was looking to buy this board, Nick could have gotten by with what he's doing. He could have gotten by with the model below it. But Nick, being an expert at everything, we felt like it was important for him to have a mixer that he's unlikely to outgrow anytime in the near future, not only because he might need the capacity, but because he gets involved in podcasting and things like that, and he helps other people, and he's a consultant to some extent with he needs to understand the technology. And so what he has now is a mixer that he's very unlikely to outgrow or need to replace anytime soon. He has the capability he needs, and I will tell you this, it's a heck of a lot better to have 12 channels you don't need than it is to have one less than you do.
Yeah, and I made the mistake, like many other podcasters. This was my third Behringer mixer. I started off with the 502, then I went to the 802, and then after I had the 802, I finally met and started talking to Mike, and I was going to buy the 1224?
1204.
1204, and I'm sure I probably would have outgrown that by now, and I would have had to go up again, and then I would have had 4 Behringer mixers.
Yeah, I have the 1204 now, yeah.
But whenever Nick ran, I had to go to my daughter's wedding, and Nick had to run Rick's House radio show, and I'll bet you used more channels that day than you've ever used before.
I used all 4 aux sends. If I didn't have this size mixer, I wouldn't have been able to do the show, and that's the only time I've used it. Now I only use 1.
Right.
I'm gonna in the next week or so I'm gonna be using 2, but for right now I'm using 1.
Yeah.
So
it's nice to have the functionality on here.
Mike, I wanna add something for somebody who learned everything from you. Is as far as the main ones, the main controls
Yes.
that Mike says, sort of glue them there. The reason B is because when you're using 3 or 4 channels, and one channel is low, yeah, you can go and solve the problem with the main one, and you can crank it up a little bit, and you solve the problem of that channel. But the minute somebody comes in on the other channel, now you have to go and lower it because you changed the level of all the channels at that point versus just correcting the channel that you were trying to correct.
Right.
And it's simple once you understand that. I said, oh, yeah.
You know, Nick, I just had a thought. If you ever make it down here, I think you and I are gonna probably produce these few videos because it really wouldn't take that long to do it. But I need a camera operator and somebody to edit it and all that. And I've got the camera, and you know how to do all that.
Let's do it.
But again, if people understood the approach to a mixer to set some things as standard and then calibrate to that, a lot of headaches go away. And there's and obviously Scott is very technical here, and there's a very important reason why you set the sliders again at 0. It has nothing to do with operability. It has to do with those channels being set at that position, the likelihood that you're going to overdrive the mix bus or the preamp is much less. It actually creates the proper relationship of the inter-channel communications inside the mixer. So that's the technical explanation for doing it. It prevents that problem.
And quickly, this was the mixer that Mike was referring to before. This is the 802, which for most podcasters, you could use this mixer for years. If you're doing one Skype guest, or at least just one aux in, if you're doing a Skype video call or even a Skype audio call, this mixer was perfectly fine for me.
And it has an aux in, right?
It does. It's got an FX send, and this is the lowest Behringer board that has that. The 502 doesn't have it. The 302 doesn't have it. The 802 is the first one that has it.
But it also does not have a USB output, does it?
It does not. It's got your regular stereo returns, which you would run into like a UCA 202.
Right. So when you look at the cost being really, really cheap, depending on what you're going to do with it, if that mixer, and maybe the new one does, I haven't looked at it. Again, Behringer won't talk to me. But there may be a similar mixer to that. For example, does the Q802 have USB on it?
It does. The Q802 does have USB.
So for $15, you get it built in instead of having to spend $30 on a UCA 202 and have an outboard piece of equipment to hold on to.
Correct. So the Q802 is the one I would get because it's got the USB built right in.
Now is that one? That one has a wall wart on it, right?
It does.
Okay. In fact, hold the back of it up here again. I want to see something.
The back of this?
Yes. No, that's the bottom.
Oh, the back. Okay, I'm sorry.
Back.
This has just
it's got the round DC plug on it.
Yep,
okay.
The Behringer S-Video looking plug.
Okay, so what I need to do is figure out this subgroup in order to hear the microphone without blowing my ears.
Well, see, Dan, there you go again. With all due respect, you're missing something. Because you may not believe this, but sometimes I get cynical. I knew you wouldn't believe it. But
No.
You know what? If something's blowing out your ears, turn it down.
Well, I did. I just did. But like I said, in order for me to hear my modulation, because I want to know how my voice sounds to you.
All right. The things that you're changing, if you're sending your voice through an auxiliary send, nothing you're changing affects what we're hearing. An aux send bypasses everything else in the mixer. It comes straight out of the auxiliary bus and goes to Skype, which is what we're hearing.
Okay.
You can, depending on whether you're using a pre-fader or post-fader send, which you should be using post-fader, but if you're using pre-fader, You could turn the main mix control all the way off and we'd still hear you. You're bypassing that entire portion of the mixer.
Look at it this way, Dan. If you are in a circle with 3 other people and you are talking, the people are hearing you, but they are not speaking or echoing what you are saying through their mouths at that point.
Right.
If they were, there will be a lot of echo there. What you're doing with the mix minus is, if by default, when I'm talking to you, you have to echo everything back to me because that's the way the world was working, the mix minus takes that away and stops it and said, no, you're not going to repeat that. You are going to hear it and it's going to stay with you. You are not to take it and forward it back to who sent it to you.
Got it.
Mike, is that a good explanation?
I didn't follow it, Amnon, but you know what?
Okay.
If it makes sense to you, then it's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just, it's like for me, I guess I just need to get more familiar with this because when I'm talking, it's like if I got earplugs in my ears and I'm talking to you in that same circle of people in front of me, I don't really know how loud I'm talking.
You talk normal.
But you do. You have to look at the VU meters.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how loud you're talking. If you want to talk low, you have to turn it up. If you want to talk loud, you have to turn it down. You've got to rely on the metering on your mixer to let you know what your levels are. You've got to learn to rely on it. And I mean this. In fact, this is, I hope, a useful analogy. Whenever you get in your car, if you were to get in your car and have someone driving for you, you have a blindfold on, how accurately do you think you could tell how fast the car is going? Probably not very much.
Not very much.
No.
Not at all.
So then let's take the blindfold off. Now you're driving and your speedometer doesn't work. You have no indication at all of how fast you're driving. Your ability to determine your speed would be better, but I still would not take a risk, accept the risk of doing that because you probably are going to end up getting a ticket, right? So
Yeah, I hear
what
you.
has to happen whenever you first start driving a car, and this is not, it's been a long time for most of us, but you have to learn to trust the speedometer. If it says you're doing 45 and you're in a 35 mile an hour zone, you're speeding. So what do? You reduce the speed of the car to 44. So it's the same way with that VU meter. You've got to learn to trust it. And what that means is when you're just getting started, you might be sitting over here looking like this away from the camera whenever you're doing it because you're watching that VU meter in front of you. And if it's too low, you crank it up. If it's too high, you turn it down. And you've got to learn to trust it. So what that means is when that main mix VU meter is moving where it should with your voice and where it's moving correctly on the return voice, if what you're hearing in your headphones is not right, now you start working on your monitoring system, not on your mixer. Get the mixer right and then make everything else fit it.
Got it.
Dan, are you planning when you're sitting, are you going to be sitting in front of the mixer so you see it all the time?
Well, yes and no. And the reason the mixer's is in a cabinet, but I'm using the iPad right in front of me. So yes and no.
The no is a better answer for what I'm going to tell you, and that's how Mike fixed me. You are going to look at the monitor. Correct?
Right.
On top of the monitor, Mike had me put an American Audio DB display. It's actually glued to the top of the monitor.
Honest to God, it's glued.
It's a 19-inch rack-mountable device that has LEDs all the way from the left to the right, and you adjust it according to your mixer. And once it's adjusted and synced with it, I don't need to look at the mixer anymore. when I look up here at the monitor in front of me, it's right up there, right? I mean, you can hardly tell that I'm looking at it, but I don't even need to look at it because I catch it from the periphery of my eyes.
Well,
And I see the what?
No, I was just going to ask what was the name of it again?
It's American Audio. If you go on eBay, American Audio DB display, they are like $60.
Okay.
And it will tell you, and it's big enough that you don't need to look at 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 lights. There are, I don't know how many over here. There are probably about 30 or more
per channel.
Yeah.
How does that interface? Does that just go into an insert and you assign it, or what?
It goes into your mixer on one of the channels that puts out the speakers.
The main audio.
Main audio.
It can be the tape out. It can be control room out. It can be the main out. Anything that is total. The main mix output is what goes through it, because this is the level of the audio that you're sending, not to Skype. It's the level of audio that you're sending to the stream or to the recorder. And again, once you learn how to trust that meter, you don't have to worry about what the recorder's doing or what Skype is doing or what the stream is doing. That meter is going to be your control.
Okay.
And the other nice thing about it, and there are some others that don't have that, this one has green, yellow, and red. And you can, I mean, if I look right at the camera, I can tell when it's getting red up there. I can see it just from the side of my
right.
eyes.
And I want to be clear on something here too, that and this part's important, in that if you get one of these, or if anybody here buys one of these, understand that the red and the yellow of this meter are not the same as the red and the yellow on the mixers.
Right.
You can consistently hit yellow on this thing. It doesn't care, because it's not necessarily calibrated. You actually have controls on the back that you can set the movement where you want it to be. If you want to calibrate it so that it means the same thing as the mixer, you can do that. But this one has a lot more yellow LEDs and a lot more red LEDs than a mixer does. So getting into the red on this one, if you feel like you're one of the guys who has to hit it in the red or it's not right, then you set your mixer so that it barely hits the yellow on the mixer, and that it barely hits the red on the display. And that's fine, as long as you learn to trust one of the two. Don't get them confused.
Okay, well, that helps a lot. So maybe the problem I had never existed.
Well, no, the problem you've got is you've got to do what you're doing, and that's continue working with it and getting comfortable with it. I will tell you that I've been doing audio for a pretty good time, and when I first got involved with the internet broadcasting side of things, it was quite different than what I was used to from the radio business. It's very different, primarily because of mix minus and sort of using these cheap mixers to do what we wanted a big console to do. And it took me, I guess, honest to God, once, and this was what, Amnon, 3 years ago, it probably took me a solid month to get it clear in my mind exactly the way things should be laid out for the most usability. And I mean, I've got it now. It makes all the sense in the world to me. But for a while, it really took me, I had 40 years worth of the way I've always done it in my head, that I had to get my head around using these cheap mixers with their various channels and capabilities. And it took me a while to do it. And in fact, what probably got me closer to it is whenever Rick of Rick's House was down in Florida a couple of years ago, a guy who does a radio show on multiple stations wanted to set up a studio at his business to be able to do his show from there. And this guy had unlimited money, but it was only I think a 2-hour per week show, and the way he wanted to do it was to have a digital hybrid for his telephone system. He got a codec to send the audio back to the radio station over a separate telephone line. He had 4 incoming telephone lines using a lapel microphone. I mean, this guy was serious, but the one challenge that he had in the way they do it differently than we do is that on this blue box he uses, or codec he uses to connect to the radio station, the way it works is that he sends the audio to the station like we do on Skype, but the radio station can talk back to him over this blue box. And the way they keep it from being confusing when they're on the air is the audio coming back from the radio station to the remote studio. When the guy on the air or the guy running the board at the radio station talks back to the guy at his remote studio, the audio only shows up in the remote guy's left ear. That way he doesn't confuse program audio with talkback audio or back channel audio. And I wasn't sure how we were going to do that. We got him either the 1204 or the 2442 mixer. I don't remember which one we got. But somehow I was sitting here writing up because Rick was going to go over and hook it up for him. And I wrote it all out and took pictures. And I wasn't sure how we were going to get this talkback working. And right at the last minute, I had this idea about this one built-in function on the mixer, and I wrote it up. And Rick went in there, hooked it all up, the guy connected up, and it worked perfectly. There was one thing that did not work, which was one of the telephone interfaces, and it turns out that this brand new piece of equipment had a bad power supply on it. So that wasn't my fault. They got the new power supply, plugged it in, it's been working that way ever since.
I see. Well,
but necessity is the mother of invention. I mean, that was a very complicated setup using non-radio equipment to do a radio function. And I have to tell you, that's when I sort of became a Behringer fan, because that one little talkback capability where I was able to bring the audio back in and send it only to the left ear of his headphones without it going out over the air just knocked me out. I mean, I was quite impressed with the ability to do that. And the guy didn't spend, on my part of it, he didn't spend $500.
well, I'm glad to hear that, because I think psychologically, I've been chasing down a gremlin that doesn't really exist, and to get my mind more focused on the meter than my security blanket with the headphones. So that helps a lot. But what I don't understand then is, now I got that and it's burned into my brain, and I'm gonna purchase one of these meters. But why isn't Solo have any value?
Because Solo is used, the purpose of Solo is, assume that you're in a recording studio, you've got musicians in the studio, and those musicians are, you've got a guitar, bass, drums, piano, organ, okay? You got a bunch of musicians in there. So as we're sitting here, they're playing a song, and something just doesn't sound right. You're hearing this real nasty something sneaking into the audio. Because so many people are playing, you can't hear what the problem is. In a recording environment, what would happen is you would reach over to the channel that has, in this example, a microphone in front of the bass guitar amplifier. And what you do is, when you press the solo button, everything coming through the audio, just the speakers in your control room, goes silent, and the only thing you hear playing solo is the microphone in front of the bass guitar amp. And what you hear in this circumstance is that every time the bass guitar player picks a note, you hear this little rattle, which turns out to be the screws on one of the speakers is loose and is rattling and picking up in the recording. So you go out with a screwdriver, you tighten all the screws on the speaker, now he picks a note, everything's perfect. And that's what you were able to do by being able to listen through the solo function.
So
I
simply
see
to
no
isolate.
way that translates into anything useful for a podcaster.
No, I'm beginning to see that, because I think he was trying to satisfy me with my desire to hear myself modulating.
Let's see if this is a better answer. You have very limited routing capability with the solo channel. Very little routing capability. It doesn't affect what goes out over the air or over the stream. It affects what you hear in the control room. And it just doesn't make sense. Now, having said that, there is a function that you could use Solo for, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, and then I want you to forget it. If you were talking to your remote host, let's say that you are doing a show with Amnon, and you're talking about music, and you're playing a song on your stream, and you want to talk to Amnon offline. Well, what you could do is you could set up a pre-fader send to Amnon, and you could then pull his fader all the way down, press the solo button, and then you say, Amnon, are you going to talk about this song after it finishes? Amnon said, yes. Okay, thanks. Turn off the solo, pot him back up, and now he's back on the air when the song ends. It's useful for that purpose, but who needs to do that?
No, but for example, Mike, I have not used the solo button, but I do a similar thing during On the Radar probably every 3 weeks. So because I'm using a subgroup 1.2 for my headphones, what I can do is for example, if we're playing a video, I can take my microphone and my co-host's audio, which is coming from Skype, out of the main mix, and then into so I take it out of the main mix, and now I can have a conversation with him while the video is playing in the background, and the live stream can't hear us.
And you're correct. There are multiple ways to do it. The way it was set up to do it, and for example, the way the PreSonus do it. The way the PreSonus does it is it has a built-in talkback function, and that is that I can press a button, and it will send the volume in that microphone through an auxiliary send. So what I could do is I could go over now and press the button, talk into the talkback microphone, and you would hear it because I'm feeding you through an auxiliary send. But if I were streaming to CDN, that audio would not go out over the stream. So I could talk back to you. But then if you talk back to me, it's going out over the stream unless I either take you off the mainstream assignment or press the solo button, which the PreSonus solo system is terrible. It's not intuitive at all. The solo system on the Behringers and Mackeys are superior to the ones on the PreSonus. It's just a little awkward the way it works. And and again, it speaks to one other aspect, and that is that as far as I am concerned, most internet broadcasters and podcasters are doing it 1, 2, 3 hours a week. In the radio business, these guys are...
Oh, not again. Hold it, everybody. That's
certainly not our day for crashing, is it?
I don't understand why it's doing this.
Can you hear me, Mike?
No, he can't.
Mike?
He can't.
Mike's off at the moment. It's crashed again, Dan.
Yeah, I had to. I had horrible heartburn. I had to run and get a Pepsi AC. I just disabled all of the.
Hold it, because he's not here.
Oh, okay.
Where are you intending on positioning the mixer when you finally build your studio, Dan?
It's already built. It's inside of a fully enclosed, ventilated, isolated rack. I mean, this thing is like a refrigerator. You rack mount your gear, and you close it, and you don't hear any of the fans from any components or anything else. It's also air conditioned.
Wow.
And now in order to have now remind you, the X32 rack is a rack. I mean, I have a photo on on the forum somewhere of it already mounted. And then I have the iPad, which mimics everything on the mixer directly in front of me. So I can actually make changes on the iPad, and they correspond. It's like using a DAW, and it corresponds, carries it over wirelessly to the mixer. However,
Dan, hold on. Mike, are you here? Okay, I am not seeing them. I mean, I'm seeing them that they're here, but they are not.
Okay.
Let me restart it then.
What I was going to say, Dan, is that if you've got the meters of the mixer in your peripheral vision, which is what Amnon was saying earlier, then that should be enough. As long as you're only seeing it absolutely peaking in the yellow, then you know you're going to be okay. But if it's over to one side, then you may not be in a position where you can see it in your peripheral vision.
Oh, I can. I can do the peripheral thing. It's just a little bit unnatural. But
Yeah,
I mean, I can. It's on wheels. I can roll that thing around anyway. I'm just restricted by the
All
length
right.
of some of my cables. But
Because I don't have this on mine. I don't have a. I've got a clip LED on mine because I only use the Behringer 302, so it's the very very basic one with USB. And if I talk too loud, I can see a little green light will just show say it's clipping, but other than that, I don't have any visual representation at all. All I've got is what's coming through my ears.
There's
well,
Mike.
these.
Okay.
Hello, Mike.
Yellow.
Yeah, we were just talking about, just as you were talking, I was making adjustments, and I've taken all the solos off. Everything's to the landing pads. I'm using the meters. So, in effect, you solved in the space of your conversation what I couldn't get solved in 3 days with Behringer.
Well,
so I'm no longer using solo. I disabled all the solo.
In their defense, they are focusing on something completely different than you are.
Well, also in their defense, the guy was very, very helpful. He spent a lot of time. He actually called me back.
Yeah, I mean, they've done that, and I get that. And I don't mean to be dogging on them. I just don't think they're using very good judgment because, good or bad, a lot of people ask me a lot of questions, and apparently people go out and spend money based on what I suggest. And I've never had anyone yet call me back and say, this was the dumbest thing you could have recommended. Why'd you do it? And they may just not have called back and told me that. But I tend to go for the safest solutions, and usually they're the least expensive solution. And that can involve selling quite a bit of their equipment. But, if they're happy with it where they are, then who am I to argue?
Well, I used your name when I was talking to him.
Well, that's your problem then.
Well, they called me back.
Well, they don't know my name.
Huh?
I lost my contacts there. They don't know my name.
Well, I always plug the IAIB, and when I tell them what it stands for, they get interested. I noticed that.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot I know I won't tell because it doesn't serve any useful purpose. But the problem the nice way to say this is that the problem I had with my contacts is they said that a lot of the people at the support and the customer levels were really enthusiastic about helping the customers, and then it just didn't carry very high into the company.
I lost your audio.
Hello.
Yeah, there you are. Okay.
What I said was that the people who were enthusiastic about helping customers got frustrated because the enthusiasm did not spread very high into the company.
Okay. Well, I think I'm set on this thing now. I mean, the solo is off. I don't hear myself talking over the headsets, but that's okay now.
Well,
and that's
you should
all.
Hear yourself. Have you got the microphone sound to the headphone channel? When you talk, does the VU meter move?
When I talk, yeah, it moves, but I can hear you fine. I can see my modulation on the meters, but I no longer hear it come through my headsets.
Well, we'll deal with it. I've got some things I've got to do now, but we can deal with it. But you probably got a button in the wrong place because that part of the mixer is not unique in any way, in my opinion, based on what little bit I've read.
Yeah, well, like I said, when I turn up the volume and so I can hear it, it blows my ears. But then your volume comes in at the same level, so it's they're not separate. That's where the problem is.
Yeah, well. There are ways around it, and the good news is that based on how many channels you have available to you, you probably got 3 or 4 ways to solve the problem.
Yeah, and I'd appreciate that when we get offline and maybe talk to you later, because this thing's got a slew of channels.
Oh, yeah.
But thank you very much, and I'm sorry for taking up so much of the time to the folks
Oh,
in
you're
chat.
going to get a bill.
Yeah,
Pardon me?
we'll bill you.
You're going to get a bill.
Yeah, I imagine I would, I keep clicking that donate button, but sometimes it don't work.
Well, we got to fix that.
I'm serious. All right. Thank you.
Take care, Dan.
Bye now.
Thanks, Dan. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, I'm frozen in VB in VidBlaster, and I cannot fix it, so I'm not.
Turn the heat on.
It's going to stay on you unless Nick is going to say something.
Well, it's okay. Scott posted a link to the Duro loudness meter in at B&H, and I use one of those. Thank you, Amnon.
I mean, just as long as it's something that you can see. I mean, the one that you have, you can actually adjust something. It's actually to diagnose a problem, right?
Right.
This one here is just for a display.
Yeah, the one that Amnon has for $60 does not even remotely at any imagination level compete with this Duro meter that's at the link that's posted. It's not supposed to. This one is actually a loudness meter, not just a peak meter, and the one that Amnon has is more of a peak meter.
Right.
And using digital electronics, you really need to be concerned about peak because you don't want to exceed or try to exceed or even reach what's called DFS or digital full scale. And with that, have a great week, everybody.
All right, everybody. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Good morning, Kathy, Hannah, Nabil, Mac, Norm, Katie, and Dana. Thank you, everybody, for tuning to Computers 2K Now. We hope you enjoyed and maybe learned something from our time together. Remember to practice safe computing, back up your hard drive, and update your virus scanner. We'll be back here next Sunday at 9, but you can always reach us at computers2know.com. And while you're at it, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tune in tomorrow morning at 11 for the Health In Show and all the rest of the shows that we do on Monday. See you next week.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, and if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals. ThatVidBlasterGuy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.
Good Saturday morning.